Welcome to the Friday meeting of the UW System Board of Regents. Madam Secretary, may we start by having the roll? Here.
Jones. Regent Menedies. Regent Miller. Regent Posh. Regent Peterson.
Here.
Regent Rye. Regent Stetton. Regent Tucker. Regent Underley. Regent Wachs. Regent Weatherly. We have a quorum.
Thank you. Are there any board members who wish to declare conflicts of interest regarding today's open session agenda? Hearing none, we will continue. Once again, just a very sincere thank you to Chancellor Alexander and your team for an incredible hosting job. We'll have a more formal thank you delivered by Regent Stetton at the end. Wonderful reception last night at the Willie Davis Finance and Investment Lab, where we could all check our stocks and either, smile or have another drink, as the case may be. So anyway, again, thank you. I'm now going to call on Regent Rye to present the report of the Capital Planning and Budget Committee. Regent Rye.
President Walsh. The Capital Planning and Budget Committee met yesterday to take up the capital budget and to hear a presentation entitled Transforming UW Green Bay Through Preserving, Energizing, Revitalizing, and Connecting by CBO Senior Vice Chancellor for Institutional Strategy, Cheryl Van Grunsen. Vice Chancellor Van Grunsen provided an overview of the university's mission and strategic priorities, which included student success, inclusivity, digital transformation, community connections, sustainability, environmental and athletics, and the Widener Center. She elaborated on student enrollment and its trajectory. The university is in the midst of preparing a new master plan that incorporates the Union, Health Science Studies, Residence Life, and the Phoenix Innovation Park, while addressing the space utilization analysis and condition assessment survey. Ms. Van Grunsen walked the committee through the university's capital budget, ongoing and future projects. And the Coffin replacement project is at the forefront of their physical transformation, a transformation of the main campus, which will require a mix of state, university, and private funding. She ended the presentation reminding the committee of the unique and powerful partnerships with Brown County, U High, Titletown Tech, and the UW Green Bay Foundation. Alex Rowe, Senior Associate Vice President for Capital Planning, presented the 2023-2025 biennial capital budget and 6-year capital plan. She deployed the capital plan database to illustrate the various projects, types, locations, and fund sources across the university. She presented each program and project for the committee's consideration. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Regent Rye. May I have a motion to, no motion, sorry, rookie mistake. All right, report and approval of the actions taken by the Finance Committee. I will call on Regent Bechtel to do so. Yes, what did I say? Never mind.
Good morning, colleagues. The Business and Finance Committee convened yesterday, and after approving the minutes of our June meeting, we proceeded with our agenda as follows. First, the committee heard a presentation from our host campus. Vice Chancellor Cheryl Van Grunsen shared an overview of successes and challenges at UW Green Bay, which is seeing an increasing number of first-generation and diverse students as it leans into its access mission across its four locations, the most of any campus here in the Wisconsin system. While the university is in a healthy financial position, the challenges include recruitment and retention of faculty and staff, as compensation is among the lowest in the system on average. She also stressed UW Green Bay's focus on serving as a workforce talent provider whose graduates largely remain in the region, which is, as we know, the state's third largest economic market. Next, the committee approved the UW System Status Report on large or high-risk information technology projects. The report was provided by our Chief Information Officer, Stephen Hopper. It detailed the 13 major IT projects across the system. 5 of those projects were completed since the last update in February, and all under budget. For those projects still in progress, Mr. Hopper shared a status update on each of the project's schedule, scope, and budget. The total project portfolio is $259 million. That's a 3.7% decrease compared to February. So overall, the report was very positive. We're on target. We're under budget on a number of these critical large projects. Next, we approved the UW System Service Agreement with Helio Campus for a suite of data science and analytics services that will operationalize the enterprise analytics platform approved by our board in June. This project will allow participating campuses to integrate their various data sets to enable improved decision-making. This is a 4-year, $2.9 million contract. It will establish a system-wide infrastructure and support inclusion of UW Green Bay, actually as a pilot institution. Anticipating that additional universities will opt into this service, the committee also authorized UW System to increase its spend on this contract to no more than $10 million as necessary to support broader participation. So, Madam President, this is another example of our committees giving some authority and leeway to the campuses with appropriate oversight so that, we're not cluttered with some of these kind of rudimentary issues coming back to our committees. So we went to that $10 million threshold, and we do think there's going to be a lot of participants in that program. Next, the committee received an update on the Administrative Transformation Program, ATP, as we call it here, because we love our initials and our acronym. As you will recall, ATP aims to standardize human resources, finance, and research administration business processes and implements a new cloud-based technology at all UW Systems institutions. And if anyone has questions, they should refer to Kyle on those. And I'm not sure what I just said. The key takeaways is that ATP is currently on budget and is scheduled for deployment in July of 2024, which again accelerates what we were going to originally do under leadership of the Regents and our past president. Vice President Jim Langdon, UW-Madison Vice Chancellor Rob Kramer, and ATP Chief Technology Officer Joanna Dr. Wang, detailed the extensive work undertaken in the project's planning and architect stages over the last many months and provided a timeline for future major activities through the final deployment and beyond. And we were all impressed with the amount of engagement on the campuses, hundreds of meetings, thousands of participants in this very important project. And Dr. Wang her report was most impressive in terms of how we're proceeding on that project. Next, the Trust Fund's Executive Director, Chuck Saunders, presented the investment report for the period ended March 31. It was a tough crowd. Quarter 1 and quarter 2 were very rough, so Chuck was brave to come to us. As of that date, UW System Trust Fund's assets totaled $730.9 million. The fund's public equity investments decreased 5.3% during the quarter, no surprise, while the bond investments decreased 6.2%. For that quarter, both the long-term fund and the UW Fund custom benchmark decreased about 4.2%. Mr. Saunders added that as downward trends continued into Q2, the long-term fund assets stand at about $523 million, a 7.7 reduction that is consistent with peers. So we're in good shape, and Chuck is very anxious to come back to us with better news in the third quarter. The committee then received the cost-benefit analysis of foundations and other affiliated organizations report for fiscal 2020 and 21. So we're a little lagging in our data, but for that period, 2021, Julie Gordon, the UW System Senior Associate Vice President for Finance, reported that 85 foundations and associated affiliated organizations that support the missions of UW System campus-wide across the system, these institutions during that period. And the universities received a total of $336.7 million, $336 million, while providing about $11.2 million in administrative support for these organizations. And we thanked them yesterday, and I think again today on behalf of all the Regents, we really give a hearty thank you to this remarkable infusion of dollars into our campuses for the good of our students and the educational mission. So thank you again to the foundations and the auxiliary authorities that bring so much in terms of treasure to our campuses. The committee then reviewed and approved UW Systems 2023-25 state budget request for operations and financial aid, as discussed, and then we acted on as a board later that afternoon. One thing we didn't mention in the report yesterday is that Julie Gordon presented the FY22 budget to actuals report, comparing actual revenues and expenses at the close of the year with budget approved by the board in June of 2021. It's the first time we've seen those types of numbers, which were welcome news. The report notes that total revenues from unrestricted sources were within about 17.5 million of the board approved budget. Total expenses ended at about 98% of total revenues and 2.8% over the board approved budget, largely due to COVID-related impacts such as supplies, expenses, etc. The committee also received a summary report on gifts, grants, and contracts awarded to UW system institutions for the fiscal year. The total awards for the period were approximately $1.9 billion. That's a decrease, which is unfortunate, but expected given COVID, of $368 million or 16% from the prior year, when significant one-time federal pandemic relief was provided for student and institutional aid. In FY 21-22, support from gifts, grants, and contracts comprised 21% of the total all funds revenue in the annual budget, so 21%. In conclusion, on behalf of the Business and Finance Committee, I would now move for approval on item E. That was the approval of the report on large, high-risk IT projects. And item F, that was that Helio campus contract.
Very good. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Regent Bechtel. I now turn to Regent Jones for a report from the Audit Committee.
Thank you very much, Regent President Walsh. The Audit Committee met yesterday morning. Chief Audit Executive Lori Storch reviewed the progress to date on the fiscal year 2023 audit plan. She confirmed that her office is making solid progress on the plan and expects to bring more reports to the committee in September. Ms. Storch then provided a high-level summary of the results of audits recently issued by the Office of Internal Audit since we last met in June. This includes executive summaries for the Information Technology Remote Access Audit, the Purchasing Cards Continuous Audit, and the Office of Internal Audit Annual Report 2022. Overall, she stated that the results were excellent and she was pleased with the responses from management. After that, Ms. Storch presented the proposed hotline report that covered an 18-month period. The communication plan and the rebranding of the hotline has been effective. The process of issuing new hotline cases to the respective campus case managers has been going very well. Next, Ms. Storch discussed the progress on closing audit comments. Overall, she felt very good about management's commitment to following through on the audit team's recommendations. Lastly, Ms. Storch presented the fiscal year 2023 budget and resource plan for approval, which was passed unanimously. Then Chief Compliance Officer Paige Smith presented an overview of the proposed changes to Title IX regulations. She outlined the changes to the definition of sexual harassment, the modification of what constitutes a hostile environment, and ensuring institutions make students aware that pregnancy and parenting discrimination rights of protection fall under Title IX. Ms. Smith told the committee her office has received good communications from all institutions. Ms. Smith then gave the committee an update on the implementation of the Youth Protection Compliance Policy. She stated that the policy is not in effect until March of 2023, and they're taking steps to ensure the UW system is compliant by then. The policy requires a more centralized approach, and they have been working closely with campus representatives to implement. The Regents place high importance on doing this well. The committee then heard from Director of Risk Management, Angela Ryan, and Chief Compliance Officer Smith, who presented an update on enterprise risk management. They outlined a proposed concept called RCA for risk, compliance, and audit, establishing a risk assessment process to help the institutions. The goal is to obtain standard data that can be used system-wide. This three-pronged approach will aid the institutions in making more data-informed decisions. We then invited Legislative Audit Bureau Financial Audit Director, Sherry Hakinson, to present an update on the LEB fiscal year 2022 audit. Ms. Hakinson indicated that the committee will receive communications in September 2022 with information about the scope and timeline of the audit. Lastly, we called on UW Green Bay Director of Athletics, Joshua Moon, to present the UW Green Bay Annual Division I Athletics Report. Mr. Moon outlined the financial highlights, the academic overview, and the community engagement external support of the UW Green Bay Athletics program. The Regents were particularly pleased with the academic performance of their students. In closing, I move to approve Resolution D5, the fiscal year 2023 Budget and Resource Plan.
Thank you. Is there a second? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Thank you, Regent Jones. And now we turn to Regent Weatherly for a report on the Education Committee.
At our meeting yesterday, the Education Committee approved 3 degree programs, received a host campus presentation from UW Green Bay, and welcomed provost, chancellors, and senior student affair officers to engage in an inclusive and interactive discussion regarding direct admissions. Committee actions included approval of the June meeting minutes and 3 degree programs, including UW Green Bay Masters of Public Administration. This will provide students with hands-on and theoretical preparation for a career in public service or the nonprofit sector. It will include 3 options: traditional, an accelerated continuation, and an accelerated executive. The public sector is growing, and graduates will be ready for leadership positions such as town managers, municipal officers, director of nonprofit organizations, and public finance administrators. And since this is the degree I have, I will add Regents. UW-Madison, Master of Science in Engineering Management. This elevates an existing option within the Master of Science in Engineering to a standalone degree. The program brings together critical components of engineering, business, and leadership. The MS is the preferred degree for universities seeking to be certified by the American Society of Engineering Management and within the engineering management education community. The existing option has shown long-term viability, and the new program offers service-based pricing and anticipates 10% enrollment growth. Lastly, UW Parkside, Master of Science in Physician Assistant. The program will include both face-to-face and hybrid learning opportunities, along with community-based clinical rotations. It will be the only public master's PA program in southeastern Wisconsin, northern Illinois, and responds to regional market and student demand for physician assistants with its 3 health partner systems: Advocate Aurora Hospital, Ascension Hospital, and Freighter South Hospital. This will provide more cost-effective alternatives to developing professional healthcare professionals. And I want to pause for a moment here and turn the mic over to Regent Stanton, who may be one of the program's first students.
Public. And I just want to say that I'm very excited for this program for Parkside personally. As a pre-physician assistant, I can't tell you how exciting it is that I could be close to family while trying to go my degree, and being so far away from them from the military for so long. It really is a dream come true. So thank you. And I'm just grateful to be here.
Thank you very much, Regent Stanton. Continuing on, we also heard a host presentation from UW Green Bay Provost Kate Burns about how UW Green Bay lives its access mission, serves the Northeast region of Wisconsin, and supports student success. The primary focus of discussion was the topic of, moving along, the primary focus of discussion was the topic of direct admission at the UW system. Direct admissions augment the typical admissions process by proactively and automatically admitting students to college based off data match between K-12 schools and post-secondary institutions. It has the potential to increase college enrollment, especially among historically underrepresented groups. UW Parkside Provost Rob Dukoff facilitated an initial conversation with academic experts, and I will note, a former Madison professor, Jennifer Delaney, and a current Madison professor, Taylor Odell, who shared the potential benefits, implementation challenges, and lessons learned from other states and universities that might apply in our context. Then we discussed the merits and feasibility of direct admissions for the UW system within UW campus professionals. Heidi Tischer-Gailey, admissions director for UW Platteville, Aaron Grisham, vice chancellor of student affairs at UW Oshkosh, and Jennifer Jones, assistant vice chancellor for enrollment services at UW Green Bay, and chancellors Mark Money, Joe Gao, and Debbie Ford. The education committee concluded the discussion by charging Vice President Jonas Pritz to convene a task force to study direct admissions and provide recommendations in early 2023 regarding the feasibility of direct admissions for the UW system. Finally, interim senior vice president Pritz provided an update on the Office of Academic and Student Affairs, including that the UW system is opening discussions about dual enrollment for high school students, which will be the subject of future education committee meetings. Provosts and other stakeholders are working on strategic approaches to program array management, and the vice president has charged a working group to plan for online program growth. Regent President Walz, this concludes my report. Therefore, I move for adoption by the board resolutions C1 through C4.
Thank you, Regent Weatherly. Is there a second? Thank you. Any discussion? Right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have a video to watch, and I will turn to President Rothman to give us the lead-in.
System President in June said one of our top priorities has to continue to be maintaining the focus on our students. In that regard, I have been participating in one-on-one conversations with students from across the system. If you have an interest, you can find those conversations as well as daily student story highlights on our UW system social media platforms. To continue to keeping the focus on our students, we asked several campuses to provide us with video content highlighting the great ways and the great work they are doing to assist students, to guide students, and to encourage them. I hope that this video helps to continue to ground us in our collective and noble mission of serving students to prepare and position them to do great things in the future, which will not only benefit the state of Wisconsin, it will benefit all of us and beyond. And with that, let's play the video.
As part of UW Parkside's commitment to student success, we employ student success coaches to drive enrollment, support student retention, and increase graduation rates. One program that amplifies this approach is the Callahan Scholars Program.
The Callahan Scholars has had a great impact on my life. There are a lot of things that I value from it. One of the main things is being able to get involved with a lot more activities on campus, which I normally wouldn't do. And it's allowed me to meet a lot of new people.
Through a transformational gift, the Callahan family supports a program that pairs financial support with support services and a dedicated success coach. The program fosters a community and sense of belonging to help students with high financial need and students of color thrive and ultimately graduate. Of the 40 scholarships available each year, 10 are specifically designated for new freshmen. Callahan Scholars have bi-weekly appointments with their success coach, participate in campus engagement opportunities, complete 10 or more hours of local community service each semester, and are strongly encouraged to live on campus and participate in high-impact practices. As one scholar shares, Callahan Scholars has helped me stay more on top of my classes, pushed me to be my best, and made me more involved with the campus and outside community. It gives me a sense that someone actually cares about how I do in school and life and wants to see me succeed.
At UW La Crosse, tomorrow's leaders are gaining valuable experience today. Through research and experiential learning, students receive hands-on opportunities they won't find anywhere else. It's why so many UWL students go on to successful careers.
For me, the CBA means a place where I can express myself, where I can develop my ideas, learn new tools that are going to help me in the future. But it also means not only a place of learning, but a place of opportunity.
At UWL, it's not enough for students to learn by listening. They also learn by doing, whether that means digging up artifacts, reading to children, or helping businesses tackle key issues.
Hands-on learning is woven into everything that we do. It's what students want. It's what employers want as well.
Engaging students, driving enrollment. UWL is moving Wisconsin forward.
So I chose UW Green Bay Manitowoc campus because for me, it is close to home, which is close to my family. And that's a big, important part for me. Also, it is cheaper and much easier for me to save money while going to school. So my cumulative GPA was very low. I am on academic probation. They told me, you gotta do academic success coaching. For me, I had a very hard time turning in assignments and getting motivation to actually do my homework. With academic success coaching, it really held me accountable for what I had to do and helped me learn how to set good goals and how to manage my time better. So a positive outcome I've had with academic coaching was I got much better grades because I was held accountable for the work that I was doing and when I had to get them done. I am so proud to be a UW Green Bay Phoenix because there are so many resources to help you be successful in your academics.
We know how important a campus visit is when choosing a university. Our new Welcome Center provides atmosphere for group visits as well as private meeting spaces. We have offered virtual ways to connect. These virtual tactics were crucial during the pandemic. Personalized communication with students has been the key to our success. UW Stevens Point launched new tools, website, and CRM to help connect with prospective students and parents. Schools and departments send communications to their admitted students. This has been a great way to keep students interested in UWSP throughout the recruitment cycle. Students have been put at the forefront of our recruitment efforts. Student ambassadors demonstrate what it feels like to be a student on campus. They share personal stories of how UW Stevens Point has helped them fuel their passion and discover their purpose.
UW Stevens Point has seen transformational change, fusing our brand across all 3 campuses and supporting student success. The alignment of our strategic planning has expanded educational opportunities, enhanced the student experience, and served our communities for greater impact. Our commitment to helping students discover their purpose begins with recruitment and is carried throughout the entire student journey and beyond graduation. We will prioritize innovation for generations to come. This is key to maintaining strong enrollment.
Here at UW Oshkosh, we have implemented a number of strategies to impact student recruitment and student success. Our new student success navigators, students will work with one individual that will be assigned to them, so that way they have that one point of contact that will support them through all of the steps of enrollment as well as continuing on with their degree.
Another way that we are reducing barriers is things that were given to us by the UW system, in that we are allowed to have a $0 application fee, and we can be test optional where students don't have to submit that ACT. Something more unique that we are doing at UW Oshkosh is express admission events. So we visit high schools, but we're adding on these express admission events where students can bring all of their application materials. They can sit down, complete the online applications, talk with an admissions counselor, and have that decision that day.
Here at UW Oshkosh, we have Hmong-speaking counselors, we have Spanish-speaking counselors, we also have Native American counselors, and then we have African-American Black counselors. The important part of having different counselors that represent different ethnic communities is the fact that we serve as role models for our students and families to see that they can also be successful.
For students who are interested in accessing education through other channels than traditional on-campus experience, we now offer our brand new initiative called UWO Plus. It's a suite of online programs that are delivered through an accelerated 7-week model. This allows students multiple entry points throughout the year, as well as options to pause their progression should they need it. This flexibility allows students to meet their own needs and be successful on their own terms. Taken all together, all of these initiatives assure that UW Oshkosh is the most accessible institution for our students, but also one that's focused on student success for everyone, no matter what their background or what their aspirations.
Thank you very much for that. I think one thing that jumps out clearly to me in the vignettes that we saw is how student success ends up really being a high-touch operation, and that high touch is what seems to make the difference. And I'm so pleased so many of our campuses are recognizing that and really taking it to the next level. In keeping with that theme, we're now going to have a panel of advising experts on what they're doing to keep the focus on students and how they use their positions to help our students succeed. We'll hear about some of the challenges that they face as well. At this time, I'd like to invite our panelists to join us at the table.
Good morning.
Yes, please go ahead.
Hi. Thank you so much to the Board of Regents for this opportunity to present on academic advising in the UW system. It is really an honor to be here to discuss and to share about this important topic. My name is Angie Kellogg, and I work in the UW System Office of Student Success. But prior to that, I worked at UW institutions for 20 years in various student support roles, including most recently as Director of Academic and Career Advising. So this is an area that is very near and dear to my heart. Today, I'm going to take about 10 minutes to discuss the critical role of academic advising, provide a brief overview of advising in the UW system, and share information about our UW System 360 Advising Initiative. After that, there's going to be an outstanding panel of faculty, staff, and students who will provide some remarks about advising and then respond to any questions that you might have. So, I encourage you all to think about your own experience with an academic advisor when you were in college. Hopefully that was a positive experience. Academic advising has evolved a lot over the years. The traditional perception is that advisors work primarily with helping students with course selection and registration. While that is an important function, advisors today do so much more than that. As you can see from the image on the right, student success is at the core of advisors' work. And these bubbles represent just some of the many ways that advisors are supporting student success. Advising is a process grounded in teaching and learning. Advisors teach about academic expectations, degree programs, policies, and procedures, as well as resources to ensure a smooth transition to college. Advisors connect students with opportunities such as internships and high-impact practices, and empower students with the skills necessary to meet their academic and career goals. Today's advising is developmental, data-informed, holistic, and proactive, providing deliberate, structured student interventions at the first indications of difficulties in order to support the student. And you're going to hear examples of that on today's panel. The key is that student-advisor relationship. There's a quote by Wes Habley that says, academic advising is one of the only structured activities on campus in which all students have the opportunity for one-on-one interaction with a concerned representative of the institution, and that is critical. This was especially evident during the pandemic, as advisors were a primary point of contact for students as they navigated challenges related to mental health, basic needs issues, and obviously they are still navigating those challenges. Advisors play a critical role in promoting students' growth and development in college, and good advising has been shown to have a major impact on student retention and success. I am proud to say that we have excellent academic advising in the UW system. Here are on the slide are some examples of who advises on campus: primary role advisors, faculty success coaches, peer advisors. But there's also, also describes various places where advising occurs on campuses: advising centers, departments, student support units. And also we have a growing population of non-traditional adult and online learners, and we've adapted to delivering online advising and coaching. Structures vary across the institutions. Many institutions have undergone reviews of their advising structure in recent years and made changes to their advising model. And you're going to hear examples of that on the panel in terms of some of those models and those investments in advising. Most institutions have an advising center staffed with primary role advisors who advise students, work with undeclared and exploratory students and/or students in their first year or longer. Many times they may move to a faculty advisor at that point, or in some cases continue to have a primary role advisor and faculty mentor. Some campuses have a more decentralized structure, so it really varies depending on what makes sense for that institution. But whatever the structure, there's a close collaboration with many units across campus, including career services, given the advisor's role in working with major and career exploration and preparation. And some of those units actually integrate academic and career advising in one unit. Advisors contribute, as you can see, beyond advising. There's examples on the slide of the many ways that they support students and the campus. But one example is also during the pandemic. Many advisors were critical in those re-enrollment campaigns. They would reach out personally to students who had not yet registered for classes to help them address any barriers and support their return to campus. Advisors really help in every part of the student pathway from matriculation to graduation. You can see also in the box that our institutions are partnering with national organizations in this work. Eau Claire was selected as part of a national inaugural cohort to participate in a comprehensive assessment process to promote excellence in advising. I know Chancellor Ford mentioned the Moonshot for Equity project yesterday, which is a partnership with EAB. And also Purpose First, we are coordinating with Complete College America, and we're excited to host a system-wide summit in October on this topic, which is really about empowering students with resources to make informed choices of majors and careers and instilling a sense of purpose as they work towards graduation and a rewarding career. Next, I'm going to talk about the 360 Advising Initiative, which began as a priority in the 2020 Forward Strategic Framework. We recognize there's already outstanding advising in the system. Our goal is to serve as a partner in developing best practices, tool, and training to support the advising community and to increase retention, timely degree completion, and close equity gaps. There is a 360 advising team that's comprised of UW system and campus representatives who provide guidance. And here's some examples of our strategies. We work to convene advising center directors and support a connected advising community. We promote credit momentum through campaigns, and we support advising technology through EAB Navigate, which I'm going to talk a little bit more about. And we work to provide professional development through workshops and webinars to share resources and best practices. The last bullet related to career development and readiness is a recent area of focus for us. I mentioned the Purpose First Summit that we're going to be hosting, but we also conducted for the last 2 years, the National Alumni Career Mobility Survey, which surveyed UW system alumni at the 5- and 10-year mark to learn more about their career pathways, economic mobility, and career and degree satisfaction. There's a lot of information there, and we're really hoping to learn from those results. One of the strategies I mentioned was promoting credit momentum. As we know, graduating late or taking an extra year comes at a great cost for our students and their families. So this initiative encourages full-time students to complete 15 or more credits or 30 credits a year to put them on track to receive their degree on time. We certainly recognize that not all students will be able to take those 15 credits this semester for a variety of reasons. Advisors will continue to work with students to determine schedules that make sense for their particular situation. Yet all students should be provided with information to make informed decisions about course loads and the benefits of on-time degree completion. So a few years back, we implemented a campus-wide 15 to Finish campaign. Some campuses did variations of that, 30 to Thrive, Finish in 4, 30 a year gets you here. During the pandemic, we also pivoted to more of a stay on track message, knowing the many challenges students were facing that may preclude them from taking an on-time load. And these efforts are working. Since starting the campaign, we have seen an increase in credit load in the first year, but we did see a slight decline during the pandemic, which was not surprising. Data indicates that UW system students who take 30 credits in their first year are more likely to persist and complete their degrees than students who take 30 credits, who take less than 30 credits in their first year. And our data also indicates that historically underrepresented and underserved groups especially benefit from taking that on-time load in their first year. Of course, students attempting 15 credits is one, getting them to successfully complete is yet another, and that requires supports both in and out of the classroom. We're also happy to partner with OPAR, who created dashboards to help institutions gain easy access to this data and provide the ability to disaggregate that data to better inform their strategies. As mentioned earlier, EAB is a software that Navigate is a software that enables advisors and faculty staff to provide more personalized, coordinated, and timely student contact and empower students with information and tools to support their success. Navigate is coordinated by a team of folks at UW System who work with staff at the campuses. Navigate is a tool used by our advising care units, but it also brings together faculty, administrators, and staff in units such as tutoring, residence life, financial aid, and athletics into a coordinated care network to support students. The platform provides various tools such as progress reports and alerts to promote that timely engagement when students need it most, rather than when it's too late. We're also conducting a pilot with 3 institutions, Oshkosh, River Falls, and Platteville, to implement the academic planning module of Navigate to provide students a clear path to graduation. Our Moonshot for Equity institutions have also implemented this module, and we're learning from them as well. Of course, the software is only the tool. It is the people that make it successful, and advisors and many others at the institution have done just that. Data indicates a steady increase in the use of Navigate since implementing across the system in 2019 by students, faculty, and staff. Navigate use particularly expanded during the pandemic. It was implemented system-wide right before the pandemic, which was great timing with the move to virtual learning and services. It has proved to be a useful tool to communicate with students, conduct outreach campaigns, and send quick surveys to assess student needs and appropriate interventions. There are a number of success stories to show how campuses have used Navigate to support student success, but you can see from this slide that system-wide data indicates that students who engage in support provided through outreach and intervention via Navigate are more likely to be retained than students who did not respond or engage. So you can also see the quote from Dean Gretel Stock regarding how Navigate has connected faculty advisors and student services and improved their ecosystem for student support at UWSP. So that being said, there are also challenges related to advising in the UW system. Caseloads. So the number of students assigned to each primary role advisor, which is their caseload, varies across institutions. It could be 200 to 300 students per advisor or more. Student needs, as you've been hearing, have greatly increased, in addition to what we're asking advisors to do to support these students. So it's a lot more difficult to be intentional and proactive when dealing with these large caseloads. Also, recruitment and retention, that's been discussed as well too. It's one of primary issue impacting the advising community right now. And I recognize that's happening all over higher education. It was referenced at yesterday's meeting, but it's really important to highlight due to its impact. We recently formed a work group to look at this issue, and we conducted a survey of advising center directors in the system, and they are all experiencing high advisor turnover. When asked how many advisors they've lost in the last 5 years, collectively, when I added it up, it was well over 90 advisors. And that's not even reflecting all of the other advising roles and departmental advising roles as well. So that is a tremendous loss of institutional knowledge and support. They're also seeing smaller candidate pools. Years ago, there'd be 100 to 150 applicants for advisor positions. Now some are seeing less than 10 qualified applicants in their pools. Salaries are the biggest barrier. Salaries for incoming advisors are very low, and there is salary compression as well for current advisors. Applicants with professional experience and degrees are looking for higher salaries, and current advisors are leaving for other institutions and the private sector that are paying substantially more. It is difficult to recruit and retain advisors due to the volume and the complexity of the work and inadequate compensation and reward. In addition, there tends to be flat structures without a lot of opportunity for career advancement and progression. The impact of this is critical. As I mentioned, loss of institutional knowledge, but there is a lot more time that is now being spent in onboarding, hiring and onboarding and training. And when there's a vacancy, those student caseloads are divided among already busy staff, impacting advisor workload and morale. This all impacts the continuity and the quality of that student-advisor relationship. Also, budgets. Budgets have been cut. There's less support for professional development, which is critical to advisors staying up to date in the field to better support students. And structurally, there's a various best practices in advising, a shared mission, vision, and values, strategic assessment of learning outcomes, resources, leadership, recognition, and building it into the reward structure. So there's great examples of these practices in our system, but it's really important that these practices occur campus-wide to ensure that all students receive a quality advising experience. So in a nutshell, student needs are growing, advising resources are not. We are grateful for we're grateful that we know that yesterday there was discussion about the need to meet market compensation and demands to recruit and retain advisors and other critical student support positions. I know that was referenced in the biennial operating budget request, and we just wanted to affirm that need to support and keep talent that is changing student lives in the system. So finally, although there are challenges, advising itself represents a tremendous opportunity for our institutions in the UW system, as these quotes indicate. Advising is critical to the teaching and learning missions of the institution, and it plays a critical role in institutional efforts to support and promote student success. Advising today is much more than transactional, it is transformational. And these advisors are transforming students' lives every day. And I'd like to take the time to thank those advisors, advising administrators, and those who support them for working tirelessly to support students and ensure that all students have a chance to succeed. So now you're going to get the opportunity to meet some of those wonderful folks as we transition to the panel who will share their experiences. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to our moderator, Marissa Delwich, Executive Director of Advising and Academic Support at UW-Parkside, and also a member of our Advising Recruitment and Retention team who will introduce the panelists. Marissa.
Yes, thank you, Angie. So what I'll do first is I will introduce the panelists, and then I have a question for each of them to answer, and I've only allowed them a couple minutes each to answer the question. And then we will open it up for you all to ask your questions. So first we have Lisa Michalak from UW-Stevens Point. She's the Director of Academic and Career Advising. Prior to that, she worked as an academic advisor for TRIO students at UW-Marathon County. Next, we have Dr. Daryl Reiner, who is our Director of the Office of Academic Advising and Retention here at UW-Green Bay and a member of the 360 Advising team. Next, we have Dr. Jim Feldman, who's the Director of Environmental Studies Program at UW-Oshkosh and was the Spring 2022 recipient of UW-Oshkosh's Faculty Instructor Academic Staff Advisor Award. Then we have Avery Menger, who is a student here at UW-Green Bay. She will be entering her senior year studying business administration and marketing. On the end, we have Estefania Alonso, a student at UW-Parkside, also entering her senior year, majoring in biology, minoring in chemistry with a pre-med concentration. So thank you to our panelists for being here. Our first question is for Lisa. And please share how advisors at Stevens Point provide holistic and proactive support for students and promote their academic, personal, and career success.
Sure. At UW-Stevens Point, we've had our current advising model for about 3 years. And the Academic and Career Advising Center at Stevens Point supports our incoming first-year students for 3 semesters and transfer students for 1 semester before we transition them to an academic department for faculty advisor assignment. During the 3 years since we implemented our model, less than 50% of our appointments each year are related to course registration. The other 50% are related to other things that our students need. Incoming students are introduced to our office with an initial 1-hour appointment with their assigned academic advisor. In addition to registering them for their first semester on campus, this time is devoted to getting to know the student, to talk about their goals, their strengths, their interests, and their values, as well as answering student questions that they might have about UW-Stevens Point. And if they're running into any challenges with financial aid or housing or parking passes or things like that, helping them to troubleshoot so that they can solve those problems before they arrive on campus, which is more likely to set them up for success. In our advising model, our advisors are generalists, and what that means is they continue to work with students even if the student changes their major. We think that's important because these conversations we're having with students about their academic and career goals, we want them to continue that conversation with the same person rather than start over with somebody else if they change their major. The model focuses on the relationship our advisors build with incoming students, providing them with a kind, informative go-to person on campus before they even arrive. Our proactive and intentional model is designed to guide students as they transition into college, as they explore their interests, and actively engage in their academic and career journey. We set out weekly communications providing success tips and what they should be thinking about and when once the semester starts. We reach out proactively, inviting students for conversations if they have any concerns or are facing any challenges. Appointment types other than registration and advising include major exploration, career exploration. Right now, advisors are meeting with students who are on academic probation or not meeting satisfactory academic progress for financial aid to work to try and get them back on track, to connect them with campus resources like our Tutoring Learning Center, our Disability Resource Center, the Counseling Center, so that we can set the students up for success. Our goals with each appointment and interaction is to make sure our students are doing well. We check on their well-being. That's the first step in any appointment. But we also utilize open-ended questions to identify ways we can guide these students and help them to explore and further define their goals. We also listen for the unasked questions, the questions students should be asking, but maybe as our first generation students don't always know to ask. So we listen for those unasked questions, questions they should be asking but aren't. We also have developmentally appropriate career conversations with our students, introducing them to our career planning guide and helping them to make connections between their coursework and their campus involvement and what employers are looking for after they graduate. Finally, our goal is to help students gather the information they need to make informed academic and career decisions, to feel confident in their major, and to feel a real sense of belonging and connection to our campus. And that's what our academic advisors do to support student success.
Thank you. Daryl, UW Green Bay recently underwent a major revamp of your advising structure. Please share why Green Bay made this investment in advising and how you believe the model will improve student retention and graduation.
I will absolutely do that. Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to be here today, and I'm really excited to talk with all of you. When Marissa and Angie said I had 2 minutes, I said I'm in trouble. This is going to take a lot longer, but it won't. I promise. I'll be quick. We did make an investment, and we made the investment for many of the reasons that you heard about so far. Higher ed is changing, right? Our student demographics are changing. We're hearing about issues, in the past, the issues that students would bring to us would be about work. I'm working too much, right? I've got to try to balance. And now we're hearing things like homelessness, food insecurity, mental health. They're bringing us these issues, and they're starting to earn their degrees at different points in their lives. And so that was one of the reasons. The other reason, and it's a critical one, is that we wanted to make sure that every student had an equitable and transformative advising experience. You've heard this already a couple times, based on caring relationships, belonging, proactive and timely advisor intervention. We want to say to our students, we believe in you, even when you don't believe in yourself sometimes, because life happens for them just like it happens for us. So we decided to make a change to our model. We knew that we were going to have to experiment a little bit. We're going to have to kind of face the fear of failure, kind of move forward through that. And with the work of an amazing advising team and a wonderful administration, we were able to kind of do that. So what did we do? What we did is we shifted from what's called a split model of advising. When a student begins with a professional academic advisor, they would declare, and then they'd be under the auspices of a faculty advisor. That faculty advisor then would carry them through graduation. We moved more to a professional advising model. I like to think of it as a lifespan model. So upon matriculation, the student is assigned a professional academic advisor who carries that student throughout their entirety of their career until they graduate. Our professional advisors focus on clear path to degree, graduation, general education, major requirements. And like Angie showed in the PowerPoint, they're a resource. We know where we need to go, where we need to direct students when they need help, whether it's an emergency grant, dean of students, the wellness center, whatever that would be. Our faculty mentors now turn their attention to what's more in their wheelhouse: high impact practices, research, graduate school application, some career guidance. Yesterday, Chancellor Alexander talked about our campuses being access points, and I love that because our advisors are a key to that access point at every campus. They are, even though they support different colleges and campuses, they work together as one team. They understand the resources. They attend professional development together. And we work together as a team to make sure that we're helping students feel like they are in a continuum of care when they enter the institution. So how will the model impact graduation and retention at Green Bay? Our students have one invested advisor throughout their journey. They have to tell their story once to that advisor. We're monitoring academic performance and enrollment trends. For example, students may be taking 15 credits a semester and they drop down to 9 credits. There's an advisor there to say, whoa, are you okay? What happened? You're slowing down, right? So we're intervening at the right times. We're monitoring repeats, which is important for our professional majors like nursing and education. How much are you repeating? Let's do what we need to do to get you that academic support that you need. We are identifying obstacles to degree. So we are looking at holds, curricular issues, running enrollment campaigns. And our goal is to capture and to catch any graduation issues before they happen. So I'll finish up on this, and this is the key. At UW Green Bay, we empower our advisors to meet students where they are. We do virtual and in-person sessions. We declare majors and enter substitutions. So we try to eliminate the forms that students sometimes have to go through. And we identify what we kind of consider those pain points. What are the technology issues that students have? What are the academic policies and procedures that they may struggle with that maybe provide some hidden curriculum that some students know about and others don't? We want to find those and eliminate those. And then we want to reduce as much complexity in that clear path to degree as we can. We know that if students can see the path from beginning to end, they're more likely to persist and continue on.
Thank you. Dr. Feldman, what are the roles of faculty in student advising, and how do faculty and staff advisors collaborate?
Thanks for the question, and thanks for letting me be here to talk about something that I spend a lot of time on and take really seriously, and I think is really crucially important to student success. So at UW-Oshkosh, I think we have more of a model that UW-Green Bay has just shifted away from, where professional advisors work with students until they declare a major, and then they sort of come into the faculty. And so the role of faculty in advising is helping students pick courses to finish out their general education and then navigate their way through the major. And I could just stop there, but that would be such a disrespectful way of describing what advising is when it's done well. Through those questions about what courses to take, we talk with students about what are their professional goals, what are their personal goals, where are they hoping to get out of their college education, how do they make the most out of their time in college, what kind of student clubs might they join, what kind of internships might they have, what kind of study abroad programs might they explore, what ways can they push themselves outside of their comfort zone to take advantage of the opportunities that they're going to have so easily in college and so much more difficult trouble finding later on. And so it's in the advising we get to build these personal relationships and talk with students about sort of the people they're becoming. And it's one of the reasons I enjoy it so much. One of the reasons I'd be nervous about moving to a model where they get to continue to talk to people like Daryl, because I'd worry that they wouldn't want to come talk to me. And I do really enjoy it. I just want to emphasize a lot of the things that you've heard already, that it isn't just about picking courses, and that it really is sort of a high-touch model, and it's something that's really changed over time. The student needs are changing, and so in these conversations about advising, other issues come up so frequently. Some of the things that Daryl just mentioned, whether it's mental health or food insecurity or homelessness, those are all conversations that I've had, and quite frankly, was pretty unprepared for at first in my advising meetings. And then just quickly a word about what it means to collaborate with professional advisors. I have a lot of specialized knowledge about working about career preparation in environmental studies, about opportunities, internships, those kinds of things. But I don't always have the knowledge that I need about the specific resources that are available on our campus, or how to navigate a particularly tricky curriculum issue. If we have a student that's returning to college after the first attempt at college 5 or 6 years ago, and maybe they have 2 or 3 institutions in their transcript, how do we make what they've done fit into a path to graduation at UW-Oshkosh in a way that respects the work they've done before and also respects the goals of the degree we're trying to give them? And the academic advisors, the professional academic advisors, have so much expertise, and they are so overworked. At UW-Oshkosh, I think the number that we use is almost 300 students. And so all of the things, the burdens that are being placed on advising, when you have 300 students you're trying to take care of, I don't even know how they do it. And when an advisor leaves, a professional advisor leaves, we have one particular advisor that's assigned to environmental studies, and I work very closely with him. If were he to leave, I would have such a steep learning curve in building a working relationship with that person's replacement. They also would have to learn how to advise for students that are interested in careers in environmental studies or sustainability. And so there's a tremendous amount of collaboration, and we depend tremendously on the professional advisors. And so I continue to reach out to them, asking questions about specific students if I don't know the answers. And so I just want to reemphasize that it's a crucial area of student success, that what we do in the classroom is obviously really important, but all of these other areas that advising provides a way of directing students to the support that they need is really a central part of the conversation. So thanks again for your time.
Thank you. Avery, in what ways has your academic advisor assisted you during your college experience?
Hello, hi. So my academic advisor has assisted me in so many different ways, different things, and multiple times throughout my college experience so far. And there's been the obvious, every semester sitting down with me and building my schedule piece by piece when I kept changing my mind and, I didn't know what I wanted to do or who I wanted to be yet. Um, and then, taking a look at all the different routes I could take and all the different classes that I had taken already and the ones I needed yet. And she made that whole process really seamless and really easy, and that was amazing. But the most memorable experience that I've had with my advisor for me is that she actually helped me through a really dark time in my life. I was struggling with a lot of physical health issues, and it was scary and it affected my mental health a lot. And I wasn't quite ready for that. And I started feeling really, really overwhelmed. And I met with her and I was just honest about it. I was like, I'm at a point where I need to take a step back and put myself first and prioritize myself, but I've never really been good at that in my life. I'm like a very go, go, go type of person. And, she made me realize so many different things and she opened my eyes to so many different things. And she made me realize that it wasn't a bad thing to admit that I needed to take time for myself, and that I might need to take a step back from other responsibilities that I had on my plate. And she told me she was proud of me for acknowledging that. Like, she was amazing. And she met with me and sat me down and told me all these different ways that I could lighten my class load and that I could lighten my schedule, as a whole, and take some of that weight off my shoulders so I could focus more on myself. And while doing all of that, she also helped me make sure I was still meeting my goals. And, I'm going to graduate in 3.5 years now. So it was amazing. And I think she's helped me in many more ways than she even realizes. And I'm really, really grateful for her. So yeah, thank you for letting me talk today.
Thank you. I'm glad you had such a good experience. So last but not least, Estefania, our student from Parkside. In what ways has your academic advisor assisted you during your college experience?
Thank you, Mrs. Dalwich. First off, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Estefania Alonso, and I'm currently entering my senior year at UW Parkside. I'm earning a bachelor's degree in biology with a minor in chemistry. My goals after undergrad include entering the MD, PhD track, hopefully in Wisconsin. I transferred to Parkside after my first year at UWM, which was during the peak of COVID-19 and the first year of being fully remote. The reason for this change was mainly due to accommodate my economic, academic, and living situation. Being a Hispanic first-gen student and not having anyone in academia to ask for help, I often felt very lost in the education system, especially when making a big decision like this one. Thankfully, my transition to Parkside was made very smoothly with the help and encouragement of my advisor, Mary Boucher. From our first meeting, I felt instantly connected with her, and she made me feel like my presence at Parkside truly mattered. When I transferred, not all of my courses from UWM met the pre-med requisites at Parkside, so I've been a little behind from the standard pre-med track. But she helped me find the best path for me. She not only helped me choose my classes, but she has recommended many ways I could get involved within Parkside or simply how to network and meet other students, since coming in, I knew nobody at this school. And being remote just made it that much harder. Luckily, I quickly accommodated and felt comfortable at this new school. I recently come across many opportunities beneficial to my pre-med path. I was accepted into the RUSH program by UW-Madison, which is a pre-med pipeline for students who want to practice in rural or urban settings in Wisconsin. Part of this program is community involvement, and this past summer, I became a cancer disparities intern at the Medical College of Wisconsin. And as of last week, I've actually been hired on as a clinical research assistant. This all started because my advisor recommended this program to me, and since it's usually geared for sophomore standing students, applying as a junior, I was a little hesitant on being accepted. But whenever I felt unsure of myself or just my abilities, she made me feel like I could take these chances and just go for it. And for that, I'm so thankful. As a first-gen student, her mentorship, friendship, encouragement, and guidance has truly shaped the way I value education. In my life outside of school, I don't have many people that I can go to that truly understand what acceptance to these programs are or just the opportunities, what they mean. So I'm very grateful of my relationship with Mary and being able to have someone like her in my corner. I don't feel like another file or another student number to her. I feel like somebody who she's truly proud of, not only as a student, but as a person as well. And being here right now has been a blessing to me. So I'm thankful for this opportunity to just voice my experience, as every step in my journey has been very impactful to my life. Thank you.
Thank you.
They get to the other end or not is partly on the student. It's also partly on us to make sure that we've provided a path that works. And, that's why our budget ask is so important, because we're losing the folks that do this kind of counseling. And also I worry, when we lose students on the continuum, I worry whether that has an impact on our student recruiting. Because, it's one thing to ask us, well, how was your experience at River Falls? Or how was your experience at UWGB? They said, well, there really wasn't anybody to help me. And gosh, there could be a lot of reasons for that answer. But how much more powerful is it if they can say to a younger friend, you know what, I got great support at Stevens Point, or great support at UWM. This is a place you want to be. They'll help you figure out where you're going and what you're doing. And so I'm very supportive of what you all do. I would call on my fellow board members for any questions or comments. Yes, response.
This is a question for did I understand you correctly when you said that each student gets in freshman intake, they get an hour with a counselor? Did I understand that correctly?
That's correct.
And is that a generic counselor, or is that someone within their academic field or expected academic field?
They meet with their assigned academic advisor, the person they'll continue working with when they start school.
And so that's like a triage to identify upcoming issues or things that they need to do to catch up academically with where they should be at.
Well, we spend an hour with our incoming students, so they're not in trouble yet. To build their schedule for their first semester, but also to have those additional conversations, which is why we schedule it for an hour, so that we do have time to answer all their questions, especially if they're running into problems with things like verification through financial aid or challenging situations that it's really important to get solved before classes start, so that they can pay attention to classes once classes start.
How many freshmen would you have on an average year?
I think our goal this year is about 1,570-ish.
So it's quite a drain. It's a task that you're taking.
It's a significant task, and they're tired, but they enjoy the work. And it's, seeing students have that aha moment is what a good day at work looks like. So, yeah, they're dedicated professionals.
Student success. What student doesn't be successful? What teacher doesn't want students to be successful? It's not intimidating. It's very kind of positive and welcoming. So I really like that. I really like the holistic approach as well. And my question is around that approach. Let's say you have a student that displays some food insecurity or mental health issues. What's the handoff to someone who can help with that issue? How does the handoff work?
I'll tackle that one. Absolutely. I'd be happy to. So I want to first start, because I just love that question. I first want to start off by saying that in reemphasizing the importance of the advisors being that resource person, right? Because you have to know and feel comfortable when students present certain issues to you. So at Green Bay, even between our faculty mentors and our embedded advisors in the colleges that work in those majors, there's a partnership there. And within that partnership, for our professional academic advisors, it's sometimes as easy as walking the student down to our wellness center, right? Or using Navigate to make sure that we have notes, maybe doing, this happens sometimes during early alert, we'll get an early alert on a student who might not be attending class or something's happening. And that's a trigger for us as advisors to intervene, to say what's going on and what's happening. But it's also a way, and you'll see this a lot even at Green Bay, there's a lot, sometimes some knocking on doors from our Dean of Students office saying, hey, we're working with the same student. I noticed this is going on. Let's work together and try to figure that out. So sometimes it's as easy as a kind of a physical referral, but sometimes it's just having that coordinated care network. And that's that spider web that I like to think of, because even though the diagram shows advising with all those resources, we can't forget about our folks in student affairs and academic affairs and enrollment services that often work as a team and refer students back and forth on our campus to do that. Absolutely.
I was just gonna add, I mean, my advisor, when she was helping me through all this, I mean, she reached out multiple times just to like check in, and even there was one time like getting ready for this panel when I had talked to her about it. My email stopped working for a little bit, and she messaged me right away and was like, "Are you okay? I haven't heard." Like, they're very, you know what I mean? She just, you can tell she cares. But she also directed me to our wellness center and kind of got me coordinated a little bit with a counselor on campus. And I did that for a few months, and it was really helpful. And I wouldn't have known about it if she didn't, you know, direct me. So, yeah.
And I would add the same general answer, but it depends also on having the personal relationship in place almost beforehand. Referring students to a counseling center is one thing, but also my personally following up is another part of that story. And it also really depends on what kind of challenge the student's facing. And then there's the part about knowing what resources are available on campus, which is there are a lot. And so it can be hard to know. And that's something advisors need to learn is where to refer students who need different kinds of help.
Regent Bogus.
Stefania and Avery, I know how hard this is, but you're doing a great job, and thank you so much for sharing your stories. And just to kind of follow up, I think it was Dr. Feldman that said that, you know, these counselors have high touch, right? And that's key to success at all of our campuses. And I know, just talking to friends of mine that are faculty and staff, we live currently in a world that is pretty high stress, riddled with anxiety and depression and mental health issues. And I know that when sometimes, Avery, especially when you were talking about your counselor, how amazing that was, that she really knew what to say and had those skills. But, you know, for so many that come into contact with students, I'm just curious, I know resources are scarce and the turnover is so immense. Are there any resources for counselors to get the training on how to deal with, you know, a student may walk in any state of mind, perhaps are having mental health issues, or I think Regent Jones mentioned food insecurity or homeless, or not just to send them where they need to go, but to have the skill to be able to talk to them in a way that's going to reassure them. And, you know, not everyone's a natural at that. So I don't know if we have resources to train. I mean, we're asking so much from counselors as it is. And I know even faculty and staff were saying, I'm not a mental health counselor, but people come in crisis. And I'm just curious if that's at all available.
Yeah, if it's okay, I'll tackle that one too. So
Thank
prior
you.
to my work in higher education, I worked in the mental health field. So I was a community mental health counselor before I was in higher ed. And at Green Bay, what we do, and this is where it comes down to really that focus on one team. So oftentimes we'll do professional development gatherings with all of the advisors. And what we do in those instances is we bring in the experts. We bring in somebody from our wellness center. We bring in somebody from the Dean of Students office, not only to build the relationship between the team and that person, but also to hear, like, what do we need to know? So I'll give you a really good example. We've got training coming up, or a professional development workshop that we're planning on DACA students. Like, what do we need to know about these students? How do we better help them? You know, so that when we're working with them, we're giving them the resources we need, but we also have some understanding. The other thing I would say to my advising staff about this is that you have to know when that you are the expert and when you're not. And we talk about that, you know, so, and it kind of gets back to the idea of the hour appointment. So sometimes students will come in and they'll say to us, you know, I'm looking at a particular major, but You know, I'm not sure if I want that. And through conversation, you begin to go, there's a lot of anxiety here. There's a lot of other stuff going on. And that's where being resourceful and knowing those things is important. But I would say that advisors are educators. And I would also say that part of our role as an advisor, outside of being that educator, is kind of having that self-reflection to say, this is not, I need support here, and being able to make that referral for that support. And so we do those, and we do those across our campuses and colleges for our advisors. So they understand some of the issues that our students are facing.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I just think it also, besides low wages, it must lead to burnout. You know, if there's not support for the counselors themselves.
Yeah. I can't emphasize enough, and I feel like I'm talking too much, but I can't emphasize enough the importance of building the team, right? And so I think that's a really big aspect of the work that we do, is building the team so you feel with a trusted group of individuals across the campus, and supportive relationships with deans, associate deans, that builds that kind of camaraderie, helps to offset that a little bit. But you are absolutely right. When we get into that registration window, it can get very busy. You bet.
Thank you.
Yes, Dr. Underwood.
Just wanted to make a comment. It's in that theme of student success that you mentioned, and advisors being that resource person. I want to juxtapose it with the challenges that Dr. Kellogg laid out in her presentation about low pay, high turnover, high stress, and the increased difficulty it is in recruiting individuals for these positions, with that of the exact same situation we're having with K-12 and the recruitment and retention of educators, but not just teachers, it's everybody in that whole system that supports students. And again, just that exact same challenge, you know, that we face, and that, like higher ed, public K-12 system employees are also very low paid in comparison to other industries. And we need to reckon with that as a society and what is truly important in our society, and invest in these services. And as a state, we need to invest in those. So again, I'm very proud of the public budget that we've proposed and are going to put forward. I'm just thankful for that request to maintain these services so that we can support the students, especially, you know, again, this is the future of our state, and we have to invest in these services, and the resources shouldn't be scarce. So again, these employees should be well compensated for their work, because we've outlined exactly what they're doing to support, and the comparison and similarities with K-12 should just not be lost.
Regent Posh.
I want to compliment Avery on your 3.5-year effort to get it done. I know you pay a price for doing that too. And I want to call back to the person that gave the introduction to this. And one of the points, because there's just been so many great things brought up here, and that is the effort to encourage the 15 credit momentum. We can help students, but we got to also push them at the same time to keep the initiative going, because that helps them get their debt down. And, you know, all of us lose our focus over time. And so 4 years is still a long time to keep focus on where you want to go and get ready for your next step. So there are many other things that I think are really helpful for helping students succeed.
Thank you. I wonder if I could ask Dr. Feldman a question. With the kind of advising model you have at UW Oshkosh, with faculty doing the bulk of the work, how do you work with assistant professors coming on board, or associate professors for whom that might be a weakness? I recall from my own college experience, a couple of excellent advisors and a couple that were somewhat weaker at it. So how, for example, does your department, or any department you're familiar with, how is that handled?
Well, that's a terrific question, but I would also just, I wouldn't say we do the bulk of the work. I don't want to take the focus away from the work done elsewhere. That's just a fantastic question. Faculty interest and effort and ability in advising is varied, and faculty are not experts in the kind of student support that we've been talking about today. That said, all of us recognize its importance and take it seriously. In my department, which is a very interdisciplinary department in environmental studies, we have, I guess, I mean, I was meeting with a new colleague just yesterday and this exact question came up. And I said to her that for the first year, I want you to get your feet on the ground and get your courses going and get your lab set up. And we'll have you sit in on some advising meetings. And perhaps as you start building relationships with specific students who are interested in working in your lab, for example, we might assign you 1 or 2 advisees just to sort of build. But our program is also stretched for faculty, and faculty advising is not, it's not the same kind of workload, but we also have so many other responsibilities. And so during registration season is when advising is very time intensive. And so I guess it's sort of, there are formal resources on campus. There are formal programs designed to coach faculty on advising, and we certainly encourage people to do that. The way I envision coaching my new colleague is having her sit in with me, and also just having an open door of communication. In our department, some of us know more than others about the various resources on campus, but we also have a very collaborative environment. So if one of my colleagues has a question that they can't answer, they might ask me, and vice versa. And that's certainly true for, that's true for all these versions of advising, all these different components of high-touch advising. If I have a student that I know is interested in going into a branch of green careers, sustainable business and sustainability management, that's not an area I'm an expert in, but I can send them off to talk to that person. The same is true for more personal questions. But I think it's just a question of being intentional in coaching people. The general education systems are pretty confusing, pretty much everywhere would be, I think that's a fair statement. And so there is a lot of expertise that has to be acquired to advise well. And so it's just a question of being intentional about it.
Thank you, Dr. Feldman. One more question, Regent Tucker.
Appreciate your time and thoughts on this as a student. Also, still doing academic appointments, but not to bring up the same topics over and over of being underpaid, overworked, feeling burned out. But in regards to that, what do you think as an approximated estimate or number, if you have specifics, to appropriately disperse the work among colleagues? How many more advisors or people in your departments would you respectively to each of your campuses think you would need? And this answer could be as vague as, oh, we need a lot more, or as specific or as like, we need about 10 more advisors in each college. The vagueness or specific answer isn't what I'm really looking for. I just want a general idea.
I'll leave then here, Daryl, before you. I've always argued that in order to effectively implement an intentional advising model, we need to keep our advising loads at around 200 advisees to 1 advisor. But unfortunately, most of our advising loads are well above that. So depending on who the advising center is working with, if they're working with students through all 4 years or working with students for their first couple of years, having advising loads at approximately 200 advisees to 1 advisor would allow us to do this work with less stress and less chaos in our lives. I think, advisors become really good at what they do as they learn more and more from experience and from them having to ask questions when students ask them questions they don't know. And it really takes, I would say, about 3 years to be a really expert at what you do. And so, holding on to people for 3 years, 5 years, our 20-year experienced advisors, they really know their stuff. And their students benefit from them having that depth of knowledge. So I think, when we lose people after a couple of years because they're burned out, students are losing that expertise of the experienced advisor.
Anyone else want to tackle that?
I would just add that I think you answered it really well. The only thing I was going to add is that I think when we think about those ratios, the lower they are, the more meaningful those conversations become and the more time the advisors have. And that's the key. I mean, when those ratios become lower and lower, you can begin to do more targeted kind of interventions with students, right? So then all of a sudden, the advisor can spend a little bit more time making sure there is time for adding notes, following up, reaching out to resources. So I think you said that very well. So I would echo that.
Very good. Again, thank you, all of you, for the work that you do for our campuses, to our students, for your perseverance and your talents. I know you're headed into a very busy time of the year. Wish you the best of luck at the start of the semester. And again, thank you for coming today. Thank you. So in an effort to increase visibility of some of the topics that previously might be presented only to the Ready Committee, the board and system leadership decided to bring forward panel discussions like the one we're about to have in front of the full board. Today's panel will focus on workforce challenges facing both Northeast Wisconsin and the state overall, including critical shortages of educators, engineers, and nurses. We'll also hear thoughts about how the UW system can help address these challenges, including increasing partnerships with employers and investing in high-demand programs. At this time, I'd like to invite our panelists to the table. Thank you for joining us. I'll return the floor over to our moderator, Rebecca Deshane, Vice President of Talent Development at New North, to introduce the rest of the panel.
And the rest of the Regents for having us here today. My name is Rebecca Deshane. I am the Vice President of Talent Development with New North, but I may look familiar as I formerly worked with UW System and WEDC in a similar position under talent initiatives, working with Dave Bruchart at Ready Committee. So it's good to see some of our Ready Committee folks here as we look to transition into those opportunities to continue these important discussions. So New North is the regional economic development organization that serves 18 counties here in Northeast Wisconsin. We're one of 9 organizations across the state that serve in that capacity. And we lead those economic development opportunities with our local partners, making sure that we're creating opportunities for business advancement, business growth, and recruiting new people to come to our community, to our state, in order to meet those economic demands that are really being driven now by talent. We have this opportunity to be with you here today to talk a little bit more about those, the work that we're doing, some of the initiatives that we're leading here in Northeast Wisconsin, but then to engage in a dialogue with you as the Board of Regents about how we can do better together. What are ways that we can bridge some of the challenges that you've heard about over the last couple days, and most recently the 2 presentations earlier today, about how we help connect students with those opportunities within our state, with those professional, with those career opportunity and growth, but how we make sure we can increase those exit strategies that lead to success, both from a degree completion standpoint, but then also to help drive economic development. I'm joined here today by 3 of our leaders, Ann Franz, who's the Executive Director of the Northeast Wisconsin Manufacturing Alliance, Matt Belkett, who is the Executive Director of our Bay Area Workforce Development Board, and Sachin Shivram, who's the President of Wisconsin Aluminum Foundry. Today, we're going to share just a little bit about the work that they are doing within their respective areas of focus, but then have that conversation about what are ways that we as a region, that we as a state can continue to advance and move that talent development and those talent conversations. We know that UW system, the UW schools are one of our key talent drivers. You are creating talent that is coming into our communities and leading our state in ways that are very critical. We're grateful to UW Green Bay and UW Oshkosh, both of whom are in our region, and the leadership that both Chancellor Alexander and Chancellor Leavitt have demonstrated with their innovation, with their thought-provoking ideas, and with their leadership. They both serve on our New North Board of Directors, and they help us have that perspective from an educational background. What are ways that we as business should be thinking more about where are those opportunities and what's that other side of the equation that really is driven by education? So we're going to dive into just a brief presentation and then would like to open up for more of a conversation and a dialogue with you as the board to understand how we can continue to drive opportunity. So Anne, I will turn over to you first.
Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to be here with you today. You are in a very special place. UW Green Bay, UW Oshkosh are amazing colleges, and our organization has been wonderful partners with them. And we really, it's not like education and our nonprofit organization. It's really a collaboration, a partnership, which is very unique. I've had the opportunity to speak all over the country and even in Europe. And I say our secret sauce is these educational institutions. These companies are willing to work together. So I am the executive director of the Northeast Wisconsin Manufacturing Alliance. We call it New Manufacturing Alliance instead of old, which is good, abbreviation. I helped start the organization 16 years ago. We started with 12 companies and now have over 200 manufacturing members throughout the 18 counties that employ over half of the manufacturing workforce in our region. What's unique about Northeast Wisconsin is also that 23% of all the jobs are in manufacturing. That's one of the largest concentrations, not only in the state, but the nation. Our state average is 16% and the nation about 9 to 10%. So really, when we were first talking with our universities, we shared that we need more engineers and more engineering technology. And several years ago, we partnered with UW Green Bay and UW Oshkosh and really looked at, is there a business case to show that we needed those engineers to be educated at our local four-year universities? And we found, yes, we really did need that. And I'm so proud of the partnership that the universities did with our technical college systems, where students could start at a technical college or at the university or community college, and all those credits would transfer into UW Green Bay and UW Oshkosh. And now there's hundreds of students enrolled in the engineering program. I'm very proud of that. I'm also really proud that our organization has given over $400,000 in college scholarships over the last 10 years. And a significant amount of that is directed directly to UW Oshkosh and UW Green Bay. Another thing that we really wanted to do as an organization is give our community, our colleges, real-time data on what are those future careers. So we do two studies. One is with UW Oshkosh, where we ask leaders throughout the region, what are their hiring demands? And we've done this for 12 years. This past year, we had 147 companies take that study, and 91% said they couldn't find the workforce they needed. The first year we did the study was 29%. So Houston, we have a problem. So and then we ask, what are those careers? What are those occupations? In the top 5 are always engineers, industrial maintenance mechanics, and even just entry-level positions. We also received a grant from Microsoft to study Industry 4.0. What are those future jobs going to look like? Because we know that education needs time to develop those degree programs. And what companies are really going to be hiring in the next 2 to 3 years are project managers, industrial computer programmers, process engineers, manufacturing analysts, and application developers. So by having real data in our area, we can really make wise decisions and be proactive instead of reactive. The last thing I'd like to share with you, though there's so many wonderful stories that I could share with you about the wonderful work that we've done with UW Green Bay and UW Oshkosh, is we hold a big college internship fair called Internship Draft Day at Lambeau Field. And what's unique about it is we bring in technical college students as well as university students to compete for internships. And it's grown so much that we have colleges throughout the UW. UW-Platteville, we bus in students, as well as Stout, for example. The students come in and they come into Lambeau Field and they see their name on a draft board. Wouldn't that be cool? It's based on their grade point average and student club participation. And then they get actual 15-minute interviews. And then the companies give them points for how well they interview. And at the end of the night, Mark Murphy, the president of the Green Bay Packers, announces the #1 draft picks. And we give away college scholarships, plus they're all paid internships. This program would not have started without the leadership of UW Oshkosh and UW Green Bay.
Thanks. Matt, if you could share a little bit from a workforce development side, you work a lot with non-traditional students and the role and the impact that our post-secondaries can play in helping to advance some of those strategies.
Thank you, Rebecca, and thank you all for allowing me this opportunity to join you today and share a little bit of insight as to what we do as a workforce board. I think everyone in this room is in workforce development, even though I'm probably the only one that has it in my title. So I thought I'd spend a couple of minutes just talking a little bit about what we do for those that are unfamiliar with the workforce board system. And to Ann's comments and aligned with what Rebecca said as well, workforce boards have long enjoyed a very close partnership with all of our local and regional colleges and universities. And it's really been the hallmark of our organization. It's because we're all about upskilling. And so that has changed dramatically over the last 10 years. I'll spend a little bit of time talking about that as well. And at the last 2 years of the pandemic has taught us anything. It gave us really an opportunity to stop, pause, reimagine ourselves, redesign ourselves, and come out of the pandemic a more effective workforce board to better meet the needs of our customers in Northeast Wisconsin. So with that, we are one of 11 public nonprofit workforce boards in the state of Wisconsin, primarily funded through the Federal Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act. In addition to our responsibilities to oversee the regional workforce development system, we also operate and administer a number of workforce development programs, providing comprehensive, customer-centric, individually tailored services to our customers across an 11-county region of Northeast Wisconsin. So I'll tell you this, 10 years ago, when I first entered this arena and joined the Bay Area team following a 20-year career in the active duty Marine Corps, workforce development was a very linear solution. We had roughly a 10% unemployment rate. We had lines out the doors of our job centers, which were really the job centers at that point. The brick and mortar structures really served as a center of gravity for our larger workforce development system. And so we spent millions and millions of dollars training and upskilling our customers to ensure we are better meeting the needs of the talent needs of our regional employers. And we did it extremely well. I will tell you that today, that approach has never been this ineffective. And there's a number of reasons for that. And I'll share my thoughts on that today. And I'm certainly interested in hearing your thoughts on how we can continue to evolve and improve this larger workforce development system. 3% unemployment rate today. This labor crisis that we're all facing, we're all well aware of it. It's been in the makings for quite some time. Our baby boomers continue to retire at a rapid rate. We have one of the lowest birth rates in generations and generations, and we have a negative net migration in the state of Wisconsin, exacerbated here in Northeast Wisconsin. Those are real problems, and we identify them as real problems. We also boast a 66-point-something% workforce participation rate. Overwhelming majority of working age Wisconsinites are in the workforce, but it begs the question, what about the other 33%? Where are they? Who are they? How do we know? Why are they disconnected? What can we do to better tailor our larger system of services to better meet their needs? I will argue that the folks that could most benefit from our larger workforce development system that might find themselves excelling in one of your classrooms here are the least likely to take the steps necessary to improve their own lives. So we've had to take our show on the road. We've abandoned, for the most part, our passive approach in our job centers. We've redesigned. We're far more nimble. We're far more agile. We're far more community-based, and we better understand the needs of our customers. We can generalize who they are. There are English language learners. They're the people of color. There are indigenous populations. There are returning citizens. We have roughly 1,000 individuals that have been formerly incarcerated in either jail or prison that return to one of our 11 counties every year. That's hidden talent. They're people with limited abilities who have tremendous ability, tremendous things to offer our local employers. So we're, as a workforce board, have really redesigned ourselves to better meet the needs of our hidden talent populations. And we've established partnerships with New North, with Community Services Agency, CAMSA, working with Afghan and Somali refugees in our area. We have a partnership now with We Are Hope up in Door County, working with a migrant population there as well. And so this is really where we're focusing our investment and our effort as we move forward to better connect the disconnected. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt, for sharing that insight. And Sachin, from your perspective as an employer, what are those challenges that you are facing within your own organization, but then also some of the efforts that you're leading within your community to address those challenges?
Yeah, thank you. And nice to see some familiar faces here on the Board of Regents. And actually, I worked for Jay, I don't know if you remember, back 15 years ago. Hopefully don't make me sweat like you did then. But, you know, before I say a few comments, I wanted to say from a personal perspective, I am a huge believer in higher ed. Spent a lot of time myself in higher ed and also in the community here. I'm a trustee at Lawrence. On the Council of Trustees here at UWGB. I teach at St. Norbert. I'm chair of our business school at St. Norbert. Involved at the Lakeshore Technical College in Sheboygan. And so I've had the opportunity to see the world of higher ed from different vantage points here in our community and how it impacts our business. And from our business perspective, so we, Wisconsin Aluminum Foundry, we're a fifth generation family-owned company headquartered in Manitowoc. Today we have about 750 employees, half of which are in Wisconsin, and the others are in Minnesota and Indiana. And it gives us a chance to see how are other Midwestern states dealing with the very same challenges that we are, and how is their educational, the higher ed system working or not working in ways, you know, versus, you know, what we do. And additionally, another vantage point that's been critical is Ann and I serve on the Governor's Council of Workforce Investment, and the objective of that group is working with the Department of Labor is to you know, help the state think about how do we address pockets of dislocated people in the state so that we can increase the overall productivity of the state and get them jobs, good jobs that companies like ours and get them working. And I think the statistics are very promising. I mean, Wisconsin is punching above its weight in terms of labor force participation, but there's still, you know, a good third of the population that is somehow dislocated. And you know, it's not lost upon you certainly that education and upskilling is precisely that way to get these people into the workforce, into the jobs that make sense for them. So, you know, out of all that background, I mean, I think the one message that I, you know, was hoping to discuss with this group is, you know, how can higher ed here in Wisconsin help meet people, you know, where they are today in the workforce, so that they can upskill. And let me say exactly what I'm talking about is, you know, in our company, we hired a lot of people in the 70s and 80s, and then they worked for us, with us for 30 or 40 years. And they learned a lot of skills, skills that we value them for, but they can't tell anybody else what they know, which is to our advantage. You know, I'll admit that, that, you know, we're not likely to lose a 30-year core maker to a foundry in the same town, because they don't understand what he knows. And he can only say what he knows how to do by saying, you know, I run the Jimmy machine and I, you know, fix the rig when it, you know, breaks. And no one else understands what that means. And, you know, what I'd urge us to think about is how can we credential those sorts of activities? And I know a lot of people are talking about micro-credentialing. And to me, this would be an amazing thing that would give our workforce mobility, engage them in higher ed. That, by the way, you know, I cringe at the anti-higher ed, you know, strain among people like me. I mean, not me, but people like me, because, you know, we're actually competing with higher ed for people, and I think that's where it comes from. But, you know, as a resident of the community, as, you know, an employer actually who wants a business that thrives in communities that have educated populations, it's actually an unmitigated good, in my view, to encourage further higher ed. So this micro-credentialing idea that you know, a lot of people are talking about, that helps people who can work, you know, and wages are very good right now. So it's very difficult for, you know, an 18-year-old to turn down a $25 an hour job. So how do we help them work, but also earn credentials that can tell the outside world what they know, and then along the way move up and stay engaged with higher ed. And maybe, you know, they go back for more training and avoid what happened, you know, to that generation from 30 years ago that never got engaged with higher ed, can never tell anybody what they know, and are pretty much stuck where they are. So, you know, that's kind of the point I would love to talk about, but to the extent that any of these experiences can be helpful, I would love to answer, you know, questions. And my name card here says that Wisconsin Center for Manufacturing and Productivity, which is unexpected, but I am vice chair of this group, which is a great group, which manages the Wisconsin Manufacturing Extension Partnership, which has a great deal to do with the UW system, and is another wonderful institution that we have that is probably underutilized, and hopefully we can talk about that in that conversation as well today. So, thank you.
Thanks, Sachin. You're so involved with everything. I think we're just giving you titles. But he brings up a very good point as it relates to a conversation starter for us about what are ways, as we're beginning to talk more and more about students who are entering the workforce immediately after high school and not pursuing those opportunities. Yes, it's great right now, and you're going to be able to make some money and go from there. But how do we make sure that they're also then still connecting to those lifelong learning opportunities so that they don't get stymied in a career advancement? How do we help make sure, you know, from economic development that we're taking the responsibility of helping our employees see those values and to move forward? Chancellor Alexander says frequently, what are those on and off ramps into the learning continuum? What are ways that we can make sure that we're, you know, helping students who want to go immediately into post-secondary opportunities? And I commend you on the Wisconsin tuition promise and expanding that beyond the Bucky promise, right? It's a great way to reduce the cost barrier for many students that are looking to pursue those opportunities. But can we have that conversation around micro-credentials? Can we have a conversation around how do we expand the accelerated degree programs like we saw in the video from UW Oshkosh are available through UW Extended Campus, where that credit for prior learning, where people can take the knowledge that they have and be able to demonstrate that and then not have to take those early courses because they're already demonstrating the opportunities that they already know. And turn it over either if there's comments additional comments from our panel members, but truly we would like to have a dialogue with you as the board. If there's some thoughts, if there are some questions and some opportunities, we have 3 extraordinarily talented and well-respected individuals on this topic, and I encourage you to take advantage of that opportunity.
All right, questions or comments from Regents? Yes, Regent Peters.
Actually don't have a question, but I was on the Ready Committee for several years. And when I found out there wasn't going to be a Ready Committee, I thought, well, I am so disappointed, but this is way better. This is way better to do it so that everybody gets to hear all the fabulous stuff that we've been listening to for since I got on the board. And your presentations were so interesting, and it's just a great idea. I don't know whose it was. I think it was because Jeff retired. But anyway, thank you so much for this, and I hope somebody has some great questions. But I want to tell you that this is the way that this should be done. It shouldn't be done in a little tiny committee meeting. And the other thing I would say, that you talk about kids going off to college. I'm the mother of 3 kids that all, except for one of them, went to were at the UW system. And they were totally brainwashed to go to college. I was the first generation, the only one in my family to ever go to college a long time ago. And what I told them from the time they were like 5 years old is, you go to college to realize how dumb you are. And I think that's really important, and because you just don't know. You think you know everything until you go to college and realize, oh my goodness, I'm dumb. Thank you.
Yes, Regent Rye.
Thanks for being here. You know, you have such as an employer, and the rest of you, deeply engaged with employers, have a unique audience in manufacturing. Many of your employees, like you mentioned, have been there for 20, 30 years and did not have the opportunity or did not choose to go to college. How are we interacting with them to make sure they're encouraging their children to be different? And what resources, we talked about yesterday, just there's this barrier of knowledge of, yes, I can go to school. Yes, I can afford school, getting a FAFSA done, all of those things. Many of the parents of those that we are trying to get to work for you. How do we expose those parents to a life of their children going to college and understanding, some of them may just not know how to guide their children. And what can we do to help all of you?
So I would start with the work that's being led through the Department of Public Instruction with the regional career pathway models. And as the state continues to expand and establish those pathways, it's really about that, as they're going through their academic and career planning in the school setting, they're helping students understand how they can pursue those different opportunities. Ann's group has led our regional assessment of, we're creating a regional career pathway in advanced manufacturing. What are those 5 key areas that is in high demand? And what are those pathways? What can you do coming out of high school? What can you do with an apprenticeship? What can you do with a 2-year or associate's degree? What can you pursue with a bachelor's degree or higher? And those programs, you'll have local career pathways that are provided in each of the schools through the Carls-Perkins Act. But those pathways create those opportunities. Where we come into play is that we really try to encourage then that expansion into the business community. How do we help our business community connect to those career pathways so that we're giving those real life experience, whether it's a campus or a tour within the facility, whether you're hosting internships or youth apprenticeship opportunities. But there's also a little bit of a gap, and I think where we need to continue to expand is that engagement with the parents as well, so that the parents understand what resources those students in K-12 are receiving, and then understanding what is that bridge from that pathway into a post-secondary option. Can that pathway and does that pathway follow with them into the career services department? So our career service members and the staff that's leading our career services understand what those students have already said for the last 5 or 6 years as they've worked on those pathways. But Ann or Sasha and even Matt, are there other ways that in your own organization that you're promoting with parents those career opportunities for their children?
I think one of the things I hear a lot from schools is parents don't come. And to the parent-teacher conferences, or especially the kids that really are having some difficulty, those parents aren't coming. And you're exactly right. These employers have parents. And what are we doing to engage those employees and helping their kids? Some of the things that we're doing include take your child to work day, but giving programming to our member companies so they know not just that the parent is focused on their career, but the other careers within that company. Hosting planned tours of employees' kids, but we need to do more. And so I appreciate your comment.
Great question, Dr. Zistan. I'd add a couple, four other things that come to mind. I think there's a lot we can do as individual companies to support the mission of higher ed, assuming we believe in that. For instance, our company endowed a scholarship for kids to study engineering at UWGB who come from our communities. So if they come from Manitowoc and they want to go to UWGB, study engineering, then they have money available. We also have scholarship programs for children of our employees, and I think that helps. So obviously that's kind of a drop in the bucket, but I think that helps create a better environment. Second is connecting our youth apprenticeship programs with education, and they're kind of inherently tied, but instead of doing summer job opportunities, we do youth apprentice, where they're spending time at an educational institution, higher ed institution, and they're working for us, and we're paying for it. And so I think that helps encourage things. Third, I would say is we can all do more to tout the technical learning opportunities that are available in the UW system and other institutions of higher education, because the rap that we're fighting against is that higher ed's all about liberal arts, you know, and I actually studied history and literature as my undergrad, so I'm not an example of somebody who did the smart thing and studied something technical, but there's so much, you know, I think people are more open to the idea of kids going out of high school and studying something technical so they learn a skill. And we've got to show them, hey, like UWGB has an engineering school now, you know. College is not just to learn about, you know, Plato and, you know, kind of esoteric topics like that. And so, although those are very helpful, you know, we hired a young man from St. Norbert College. He graduated with a liberal arts degree, and now he works in our machine shop and with his hands, and he just discovered during college that he wants to work with his hands and build things. So I don't mean to, you know, denigrate the liberal arts, but I think parents these days are more, you know, thirsty for like technical education opportunities, and we got to tell them about that. And then the last I would say is supporting continuing education for our employees as much as we can. So for instance, we have a program where we support only one person a year, but one person a year to get a business degree, either at UWGB or at St. Norbert. And so everybody's welcome to apply for that scholarship and they can get it. And then for those not available who can't get that, then, you know, they can take classes at LTC or UWGB as they work, and we will support that and pay for it and make time for that. So I think, you know, getting employers to commit to continuing education is a way for them for you know, older adults to, or not older, but, you know, working adults to experience higher education, and hopefully then they transmit that to their children about, you know, what a positive experience that was. But great question, and I think kind of a subtext of your question is that as employers and business people, we have an outsized impact on how a community feels. I mean, you know that better than most of us, and so agree 100% that we have some responsibility here.
I would interject here that I would say you and myself and some of the other folks who are on the table are shining examples of the utility of letters and science graduates and what a difference they make. Point taken, sir.
If I could just
Yes.
quickly
Oh,
address
go ahead,
that
please.
from a very different approach. I may not necessarily have the tools or the resources to identify who the parents are, particularly if they're working, but I know who their children are. We have schools in Green Bay that 100% of the student body are receiving or eligible to receive free or reduced lunch. We know young people that come from lower SES levels, what challenges they're likely to experience as they begin to transition into adulthood. So we have 62 school districts in our 11-county area. It's a big lift, but establishing meaningful partnerships with those individual schools is a great way to connect those young people to better opportunities as they progress and matriculate.
Thank you. Regent Bogus.
I want to thank all of you and impressive efforts. I mean, it's incredible what you're doing for the state and the region. So I know Ann had mentioned 91% of the businesses responded that they're kind of bleeding out of the labor force here. So I was just curious, I think it was Matthew, you'd mentioned that you're going out now. You're not brick and mortar. You're going to these underrepresented populations and really trying to recruit and make that effort. And as a veteran also, I know we have so many veterans in the state that don't even think that after 10, 15 years of working in the labor force that maybe they're thinking about going on for an education, but what are the barriers that you see and how can we help reach them from your perspective, being boots on the ground? If you can just let us know some of those barriers.
I'll be brief, but thank you for an excellent question. So we have a saying in my office. I don't think I can claim credit for coining it. You can't be what you can't see, right? So many of these young people, if they're surrounded by chaos, dysfunction, poverty, many of these young people have experienced some of the worst forms of trauma imaginable. We run assessments, you're familiar with them, called ACEs, Adverse Childhood Experiences. It changes the way in which the brain is wired. So that's the first thing. We have to understand the customer. Having a rational conversation, young man, young woman, you need to go to college, you'll make a lot of money, you'll get a good degree, you'll have a great job, all those things. That doesn't always fly when somebody who has never experienced somebody who's done those very same things. So our strategy as a workforce board is creating meaningful collaborations and partnerships with organizations, community and faith-based organizations who have street credibility, who have established networks with the populations we aim to serve. Dr. Corey King, he's sitting in the back, or he was earlier. He's one of your vice chancellors. He served on one of our recent procurement committees where he was instrumental in selecting the service providers that are now working in your communities, helping these young people achieve life success.
President Rothman.
You threw down the gauntlet, so it's great to see you, and I'm not at all surprised that you have been extraordinarily successful in your life. But on the micro-credentialing issue, and particularly about continuing education as you look at that, if you were in our shoes, where would you focus in terms of the subject matters? Secondly, in terms of the delivery function, a lot of it's online, a lot of it's available online outside of the system. How do we differentiate ourselves, and can we do that by having some in residence or at least in-person instruction around that? And then finally, how would we best communicate that to the community more broadly so that people know that we have that? Because I think we are committed to that moving forward and really working with adult learners as well, understanding that this is a much longer time continuum in terms of education than it might once have been.
So I'm kind of thinking of your questions in order of difficulty, which actually the first one is the hardest, which, you're asking about, like, how can this mechanism get started? Now, my experience is in the foundry industry, and the foundry industry has about 10,000 workers in Wisconsin. So not a lot, but a significant population of people who generally have the same skills and are, can interchangeably, in theory, work in different companies. Now, just thinking about that as an example of how to start, I would imagine that this is a lot of boots on the ground work that is required by, educational specialists who would need to, come into companies like ours, observe work, understand how, the process of work happens, and what are the, similar processes that happen at each company, and what is the skill that, the worker brings to the job. And then, identify those, can we have something simple that, gives people badges of, this is a red badge operator of a core machine, and to what separates a red badge from a green badge is, you have this one additional skill, and you also know how to make things of some sort of complexity, but these are all kind of like really on the ground issues that people will need to understand. And then, then comes the kind of interaction with the educational piece itself, which is how do you get someone other than through experience and watching others do it, how do you educate someone to, go from that red level to a green level? What things do they need to learn? So I don't know what it is, but, we need educational specialists to help us understand and map that out. And then this experience, I would suggest maybe you start with pockets of industry like ours that are sufficiently large, opaque, and unique perhaps to the state. Foundry again is something unique. There may be 3 or 4 that, right out of the gate we can talk about, plastic extrusion, CNC machining, welding, metal fabrication are the ones that come to mind. And then we need to map that out, and it's gonna happen on a inch by inch level, is my feeling. So I don't know if that gets your question, but that's kind of how I would envision the work starting and happening. I think your second question was medium of learning. Yeah.
Up there. I mean, how much of that would occur in terms of our colleagues in the tech colleges versus, as you think about it, what the university could offer in terms of certifications in cybersecurity, for example, or in data analytics, or in finance, or in marketing, where we probably bring a different level of expertise than other areas. Again, not denigrating those other areas are critical. But how do you see us in position to do that?
And if I can jump in quickly, I think one of the things is really how is the data going to drive that conversation? And Anne shared earlier the data that they have been using at New Manufacturing Alliance to help them drive that model. So cybersecurity, data analytics,
project management.
Yeah, going back.
And so we've been doing some training. In the last 4 months, we trained over 300 people in project management. And it was utilizing LinkedIn Learning and content experts and a capstone project. And then we direct people to the universities to continue their education. And that's the key. Some people who don't have a degree, I'm a 3-time college dropout, but now I have my master's degree. And when I went back for my master's degree, I really was going to UW Oshkosh for a certificate program where there were some classes in the master's degree in educational leadership. I didn't want to do the whole thing. That was too scary, right? But I took some of the classes and realized, wow, I'm not that far from getting my actual master's degree. And so that's one of the values of these digital skills, digital badges. It's getting people to open up the door of education that they thought was closed to them.
And I think, Anne, you point to a really, unique way where we can have that business and education connection point, where as industry, you're leading cohort learning in a very specific and concentrated area. But there's a lot of growth that can come from that, and that you've been able to establish those partnerships so that that learning that they had in your cohort model can translate into a degree or 3, credits, whatever that is, whatever those credits are at a post-secondary institution. And then it's, okay, I can do that and I can take these next steps. And I think that's where we can identify, how can we take the data that we know we have? How do we align with you as system and with our regional campus partners to pull together these cohorts where maybe industry is leading that first cohort model of, okay, well, college is maybe scary, or going back to college after 20 years is scary, but I can take this class and do that. And then it opens up those opportunities. And then I would challenge that your campuses have extraordinarily awesome convening power. And that when you're looking to communicate those opportunities, that there's convening power that happens here that allows us to connect to different segments of our own community and our own region so that we can continue to promote and connect people to those opportunities that come forward.
I mean, on the question of is Lakeshore Technical College in a better position to do this work in certain, industries or something, or is it the UW system, is it worth the time and money of the UW system to do it? I mean, to cop-out answer, I guess would say it would need to be both, but being involved with Lakeshore Technical College, for instance, I don't think they're in a position to do the immense amount of work that needs to happen, in part because of resources and faculty that they don't have, but also they don't have the geographical purview. I mean, we're talking about statewide here, and they are inherently focused on serving their kind of constituent communities. But I would imagine the technical colleges can and should play a very important part in, the information gathering, kind of boots on the ground type stuff and delivery, but really in terms of coordination and strategy of, if you were to take on such a, immense project, I would think it, would need to come from the UW, and then on the medium of delivery, I think, at least in our industry, it's in person is so much better. People often just don't have computers at home. Their only source of internet is their phone, and it just doesn't work to deliver classes. And so I would say in person, which again plays to the strength of the UW system. You have great campuses, and just think about UWGB being in Manitowoc and Sheboygan and Green Bay. And I imagine the other systems, and then in Marinette as well. And so I imagine the systems are similar. And then the last on communication, I don't have a great answer. I'll just throw out there that I think by doing it, I think if your companies, if you have a successful pilot in an industry like ours, and we're all over the state, I think that success itself will help communicate, what we're doing. But I imagine there are other methods that you're much better at.
Thank you so much to our panel, not only for the work you do, but for coming here today to share it with us. And also thank you to our Green Bay and Oshkosh colleagues who are making this relationship so productive. Thank you for all you do. Appreciate it. At this time, we'd like to officially recognize the service, commitment, and contributions of one of our former Regent colleagues, Regent Emeritus Tracey Klein. I'd like to invite Regent Manydeeds and Regent Bechtel to present the board's resolution of appreciation for Regent Klein's service to the UW system.
Good morning. This is a happy work assignment for Ed and I. We're pleased to do this. I'm going to make a few remarks, and then my colleague and friend Ed Manydeeds will share some thoughts as well. Tracey Klein. Hi, Tracey. Are you a little nervous right now? No? Okay. And I know. You will have the microphone at the end. And hi, Rick. Nice to see you. Tracey, born 1959 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Attended University of Wisconsin, earned her BA in 1980. She went to Marquette Law School, earned her JD in 1984. Tracey was a Thomas More Scholar and was a member of the Marquette Law Review. Now, for non-lawyers, when you hear that a lawyer was on law review in law school, in the words of Ron Burgundy in Anchorman, it's kind of a big deal. Glad you guys like bad movies the way I do. So Tracey is a best lawyer, known around the country as the best of the best, healthcare lawyer in particular. She's worked at some great law firms. Jay, she worked at Foley and Lardner. She's at Posinelli now. Posinelli is a very large law firm around the country, about 900 lawyers, but about 120 do healthcare, specialize in that unique practice of law. She was an associate and promoted partner at Michael Best, my law firm. And in fact, Tracey recently reminded me that she was the chair of the committee that promoted me and a few other lawyers at Michael Best to shareholder to partnership. Now, we all can't be perfect. I guess we can excuse that one-time lapse of judgment in Tracey's work. But I can tell you that Tracey was a mentor to me at Michael Best, to me and many others in the firm. She's someone you could go to talk to. She would explain stuff to you. How do I approach this subject? How do I tackle this problem? How do I solve this problem? I'm working with a difficult client. How do I manage that relationship? How do I communicate bad news? How do I navigate problematic partners? And Tracey and I had a few of those at Michael Best. In the community, I've connected with Tracey many times. She serves on the Greater Milwaukee Committee, which is one of our most important committees in the Milwaukee area. She's a film and arts buff. Did you know she was on the Milwaukee Film Festival Board? She's on the Skylight Music Theater Board. And I guess she likes sports because she was on the Southeast Wisconsin Baseball District Board. Go Brewers. Now, those who are familiar with the New York Times columnist and conservative thinker David Brooks, what I just stated to you are what David Brooks calls resume virtues. Those are the skills that one brings to the marketplace. But there are also eulogy virtues. Now, let me quickly say, we're not here to bury Tracey. I'm not here to deliver a eulogy. I can tell you that she's in fine shape. She's in good health, both mental and physical. But no, the eulogy virtues, as David Brooks explains, these are the virtues that get talked about at your funeral. Is she kind? Is she brave? Is she honest? Is she faithful? Check all those yes. These are the virtues, Tracey, that we as regents are going to miss about you. Regent Klein, we all saw it displayed. She has a keen intellect. She's inquisitive. She's kind. She's willing to put the work in to get to a solution. And Tracey can't be boxed in. She may surprise you with a conclusion that she's reaching, and she'll have us all walk through in her own lawyerly way, her Socratic method. Hey, let's talk out loud. Let's kind of think about this. Oh my God, how long are we going to think about this, Tracey? But you know what? We have that conversation. That is the methodology, the manner and purpose in which she thinks. And you know what? Yeah, I see your point. And yeah, you know what? By God, she's right. That's the way Tracey would approach subjects with us, and we all, I think, appreciate it. I see a couple smiling faces here and a couple of nods because we saw that in action. But she also has a North Star of values, right? That's a shining North Star. This is a very value-laden person. Social justice, intellectual honesty, follow the golden rule. And those values, I think, will be reflected in her legacy here on the Board of Regents and the thing that she accomplished. So Tracey, thank you for your service, for your sweat equity, for your mentorship, for your collaboration. You get along with everybody on the board, right? A terrific regent is stepping away, and we all, the system, the campuses, the students, the faculty, the chancellors, the staff, the state of Wisconsin, we owe you, Tracey, as a colleague, a debt of gratitude for a remarkable service and remarkable results. So thank you. Ed?
Thanks, Scott. Well, Tracey Klein. So you just heard from Regent Bechtel all of the accomplishments, all of the attributes, all of her fine qualities that he knows and has known for many, many years. So when I first met Tracey, I didn't know anything about her other than she was a lawyer from a big firm in southern Wisconsin. And so being a lawyer from a little firm in northern Wisconsin, we rarely, if ever, get to rub elbows with the elite. And so I was interested to see what this was all about. And, you know, when you're just sitting around the table like this, you really don't get to know each other very well. You understand that people come here with abilities, with gifts, with things they have to offer us as a group that help us reach decisions on behalf of the system. And we expect that and understand that everybody's talented and can do that. But it's not until we get into the committees, the groups, that we actually get to appreciate the full extent of people's abilities and powers. And so my first exposure to this was on the Personnel Matters Review Committee. And this is a very important committee because professors and other employees were coming with disputes they were having with their chancellor and asking us to determine whether or not a correct decision had been reached on their behalf or against them. And so it's a weighty committee. It's one that you take very seriously and you study and you prepare. So I thought I had done all that, and then we had our first hearing, and I realized that I hadn't even scratched the surface because Tracey had done far more than that in her preparation, and she asked questions that got right to the heart of the issue and helped us reach a decision in those several hearings that we had all at once, it seemed, in 1 year. Right, Tracey? It seemed like we were having those every other week, but it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure having her there, and I thought, wow, this is what a top-notch hotshot lawyer from southern Wisconsin and a big firm is all about. Pretty impressive. Same kind of result happened when I was on the education committee with Tracey. She would know everything, would have read the articles that supported or were against whatever it was that we were talking about in the education committee. As chair of that committee, I would be able to sit in on the pre-meeting meetings that we would have and have basically Tracey lead us through it and manage the agenda, which is all quite impressive. And I thought after that experience, well, this is someone that if I ever needed them on my team, I would have to have Tracey Klein on my team. So last year I had the opportunity to put teams together. And Tracey had the idea of having a governance committee, which I'm happy to see is going to be continuing with the executive committee. So She had several ideas about it. I thought that was great. I asked her to chair it. She did it. So what did we do? The very first thing that we did, knowing that coming up ahead of us was a search for a system president and a search for the, well, we didn't know it at the time, but we ended up having a search for the Madison chancellor right after that. We needed to change the policy, in my opinion, about how the groups were put together that would conduct the searches and do the interviews and make a recommendation to us. And Tracey was on board with that, and she worked on the language of the proposal. She took the old proposal and tweaked it a little bit. We discussed it. We had meetings, virtual meetings about that issue. And some people were resistant. Some people thought it was okay the way it was. Some people didn't want to change it. Tracey took it upon herself to talk to those folks. That's what a good leader does. They talk to people individually and find out what the issue is and try to reach a solution to that problem that individual and that committee is having. And Tracey did that, and we ended up getting that policy changed such that we had more shared governance on those committees to hire chancellors and presidents of systems. And that was all to the benefit of the system. So Tracey was instrumental in large part in getting that policy passed because of her ability to talk to people who may have had doubts about it or who may not have been on board about it. She got them on board and alleviated their doubts, and we got that policy passed. So then she was on the Madison Chancellor Search and on the Presidential Search Committee. And let me tell you that everybody on those committees were committed. Everyone on those committees were well-read, and everybody had good things to bring to it. But Tracey always had what was in the best interest of the system in her heart, and always did what she thought was best for us to know, for us to think about, and for us to look at, and maybe get information about before we reached a final decision. She was very active, as I would expect, and as I thought she would be, member of those committees. And so we owe her a lot for helping us make those tough decisions. There's something else that you don't know, though. Last year was a tough year for us. We had a lot of things going on, a lot of personalities to deal with, a lot of side issues that some people don't know about, a lot of information that was coming to me that I didn't know what to do with. And I had Karen, obviously, to help me, and everybody at System. But every once in a while, every week or so, I'd get an early morning text. So I get up early because I'm old and I go to bed early. So I get up early and I'm, doing walking or something, or, looking at the TV or something, drinking coffee, and you get a text. Ed, do you have time to talk this morning? TK. So TK, okay, I got the TK text for the day. So, yep, we can do it at 8 o'clock. Okay, so I would talk to her, and she was usually walking through an airport, usually walking on a street getting to work, usually on her way to something in between meetings. And we always had to fit these in between meetings. And during that time, she would give me her thoughts and her advice on issues that we were faced with at the system and on the Board of Regents. And she was always quite helpful in making me see another side of an argument, or else perhaps supporting my thoughts on it. And that went on throughout the course of the whole year. That was, I counted on my TK text, resulting in a TK phone call. And it was all business. But it was good business, and it was helpful business, and it made my life easier. And so many people did that last year. And Tracey, you were really good at that, and I really appreciate that. So you're a Regents Regent, and I know that I'm going to miss you, as everyone else will. So with that being said, I'm going to read the resolution of appreciation for Regent Tracey L. Klein. Whereas Tracey L. Klein has dedicated 6 years of exemplary service as a regent of the University of Wisconsin system from May 2016 to June of 2022, and whereas Tracey served on numerous standing committees, including 5 years on education, 2 years as chair, 3.5 years on capital planning and budget, 6 months as chair and 1 year as vice chair, 2.5 years on research, economic development, and innovation as vice chair, and 1 year on business and finance. And whereas Tracey chaired the 2019 Special Regent Committee for the UW-Whitewater Chancellor Search, and additionally served as a member of the Special Regent Committees for the recent UW-Madison Chancellor Search and the UW System Presidential Search. And whereas Tracey has worked to reward the to reward the commitment of extraordinary UW educators serving on 3 of the Regent Award committees: teaching excellence, academic staff excellence, and diversity, and in all areas has been a staunch and articulate advocate for advancing excellence, affordability, and accessibility within the UW system. And whereas Tracey has chaired the Special Regent Committee on Governance Issues 2021 to 2022, and served on Committee on Student Discipline and Other Student Appeals, which she chaired for 6 months, and the Personnel Matters Review Committee, and also served as Regent Liaison to the Wisconsin Partnership Program, an initiative of UW-Madison School of Medicine and Public Health. And whereas as a Regent member of the WSIS Advisory Committee, helping to advance scientific research from UW comprehensive universities throughout the state. And whereas Tracey is a proud UW Badger, having earned her Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from UW-Madison, before earning her law degree from Marquette University Law School, and as an alumna and healthcare attorney, she served as a member of the Board of Visitors of the University of Wisconsin-Madison Political Science Department, and is also a past member of the advisory board for the UW-Milwaukee's College of Health Sciences. And whereas Tracey, a strong proponent of lifelong learning, has kept her focus on what is best for students and their education, making sure that they get a high quality and cost-effective value for the tuition dollars. Be it therefore resolved that the Board of Regents of the University of Wisconsin System commends Tracey Klein for her dedicated and distinguished service on behalf of higher education in Wisconsin. No pictures. Hey.
Thank you. Very, very, very.
You did it. Here, come on.
Oh, do we take a
Karen.
picture first?
Yeah, you get this.
Click after. Oh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay,
I got it.
there he is.
You'd think that I'd know how this goes, having sat through so many, but I found myself a little confused. And I found myself, I got to say, a little verklempt. I like you guys so much. I enjoyed this body so much, and what we did was such good work. And so I am really, really going to miss you all. And I thank Ed and Scott for such kind words. Not sure they're deserved, but I'll take it. Very, very nice of you guys. I was trying to figure out what to say today, and I wanted to say a couple things. And just real quickly, where I came from here. Yeah, I'm kind of your product, right? And at the point of beginning when I was trying to, Governor Walker had appointed me, and I was going through the confirmation process. I went, and it was really important to me to get every member of the Senate to vote for me. And so some people didn't really need to talk to me, want to talk to me, but I made a point. And so finally, the minority leader of the Senate said, all right, I'll meet with you. And I went in, and she had my notes sitting on her table. And she said, why do you want to be a regent? Which, my husband would say, wouldn't you expect that question, Tracey? I didn't, but I blurted out, because I've always wanted to be a regent. And it was a quick answer that was really not responsive to what she was asking me. And she cut me slack. She ultimately voted for me. And she cut me slack because I think she knew what was behind that comment, which was that I have a deep and abiding love for the University of Wisconsin. And it is my story. I was that kid from the small town, a non-diverse, non-cosmopolitan small town in Waukesha County, who ended up at University of Wisconsin-Madison at age 17. And I thought that the portal of the universe had opened to me. It was unbelievable how much learning, how much wonderful friendships and just learning about different people in different places. Loved it. And I was a liberal arts. I was political science, letters and science, College of Letters and Science. And, I had such a good education, art history and music. And I realized I could sit, and I developed the courage, I could sit at any table in the world with anyone. And I carry that with me today. Sometimes I needed to, Scott, because I had a couple different law firms I was at. So you have to, but that's the gift, I think, of UW, the whole UW system. It's this ability to go anywhere in the world. And this was my family's story too. When you reflect on, the value of UW education to our families, and I'm sure many of you have the same story. My grandmother went to Stevens Point Normal College in the 1920s to become a teacher. We had many members of the family go to UW-Madison. Rick's dad graduated from University of Wisconsin-Madison and then went back because he was at MATC as a professor to get his master's. Left the family in summer to go back and get a master's from UW. We had family members that went to University of Wisconsin Stevens Point, University of Wisconsin La Crosse, University of Wisconsin Whitewater. Rick and I met at UW Waukesha because when I was a senior in college, I was going for some extra credits, and his dad had just died. He delayed going to school, and we met there. Rick's mom graduated from this institution when she was 76 years old. She started at Whitewater and completed her degree. I don't know what they called it in 1989, if it was correspondence or what, but she did it remotely and would come here occasionally. But she graduated, and she was really irritated at the time because she was not the oldest graduate in the class. She was 76, and there was some guy who was 80, and he got the award. So that was irritating to her. But anyway, that was our family story, and that's not a different story from very many families in this state, and certainly for a lot of your families. And so it's huge. For our family, it wasn't theoretical. A UW education was not theoretical. It was a lived experience. And what I just want to say to all of you is, this is a great public university system, and I know you know it. And to the new regents, I would say, throw your shoulders back and brag about it, because we employ in this state something like 170,000 people. We're responsible. We have enrolled students of about 167,000. We have a $6 billion budget. We are responsible for $30 billion of the state's $300 billion in economy. And as I like to say, Karen will laugh, we have a nuclear reactor at UW-Madison in the engineering department. Think about that. We're really second to none. And the experiences we provide to our students and the benefit we provide for the state, there's no other way for the state of Wisconsin to influence the well-being of its citizens, no better way than through UW. And we're the greatest resource the state has. Aside from maybe fresh water, we are the most important resource, and I think you can never forget that. To my colleagues that I served with, I just got to tell you, I love you all so very much, and you are awesome people. Please don't be mad at me, but I just got to say, first of all, Regent President Walsh, congratulations. And my gosh, you did the work. You went all over this state to recruit the very best chancellors for this system, and I don't know anyone who could have put in that kind of work. And Amy, you have a heart. I could hear it today in the conversations. Your heart is so big. You're going to be a great Regent Vice President. And Chris Peterson, man, truth to power. I love that about you. Chris would take whatever she thinks isn't right, and she goes right to the power source. Hector, you've been an advocate for UW-Milwaukee like nobody's business. It's great work. Mike Jones, support was the word that comes to mind. In all the meetings, you get on for the search committee meetings, and I'm here. And Mike is just an outstanding statesman. Jill and Brianna, you stood for students all the way through, and appreciate that. Ashok, you are a leader in diversity and also in making sure we keep up in the health sciences, and I've so enjoyed serving with you. Rodney, you are, to me, the citizen of the state. You just represent all that is good about Wisconsin. And last but not least, I want to talk about quickly Scott and Ed. So Scott is probably one of the most capable humans I know. And I know he's working to solve many problems. and is an extraordinary regent to have with you. Lastly, my good friend, Ed Many Deeds. Many of you don't remember what it was like about a year ago, June 4th of 2021. We didn't know who was going to be president of the Regents. And it wasn't completely clear. There was a lot of turmoil. Ed stepped up. Ed was such a leader, and he reached across the aisle and he worked with people, and he's so steady and calm, and he got things accomplished that we needed to set the foundation for the future of the system, by being able to recruit our good President Rothman and also our new Chancellor at Madison. So I believe we all owe Ed a debt of gratitude, and it was my extraordinary pleasure to serve with you, Ed. So I'll just end by saying I leave this place very sad, but knowing full well that you guys are such good stewards of this important asset, and you will do the very best. I don't think, oh, they'll need me. I think, wow, they're great people. So on Wisconsin, and thank you very much for all your time today.
Thank you, Regent Klein. Great to see you again, and feel free to drop into any Regent meeting in the future. I will now call upon Regent Staton to read a resolution of appreciation to UW Green Bay for hosting our August meeting. Regent Staton, the floor is yours.
Thank you, President Regent Walsh. Good afternoon, UW Green Bay. I'd like to read the resolution of appreciation for you. Whereas the members of the Board of Regents are pleased to recognize the University of Wisconsin-Green Bay as the official host campus for the board's August 2022 meeting, and are grateful for the generous hospitality extended to this month by Chancellor Michael Alexander and the entire Phoenix community. Whereas the board appreciated hearing Chancellor Alexander's in-depth and inspiring presentation, This Is How We Rise. And whereas the Education Committee thanks Provost Kate Burns for giving specific examples of how UW Green Bay thinks differently about higher education and its impact on student learning. And whereas the Capital Planning Budget Committee was pleased to hear from Chief Business Officer Cheryl Van Groensven in her presentation in transforming UW Green Bay through preserving, energizing, revitalizing, and connecting. And whereas the Business and Finance Committee also heard the Chief Business Officer Van Groensven, who shared with committee members how UW Green Bay is investing in access and student success. And whereas the Audit Committee thanks Director of Athletics Josh Moon for his overview of intercollegiate athletics at UW Green Bay and the athletics program, many benefits to campus community. And whereas the board was delighted to get an up-close look at the Titletown Tech, a technology-driven innovation center, and the Wiley D. Davis Finance and Investment Lab, a collaborative lab environment designed for hands-on business education, be it therefore resolved that the Board of Regents hereby thanks UW Green Bay for this month's informative presentations, its rising and forward-looking spirit, and its many continued purposeful contributions to the UW system and to the state of Wisconsin. Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Staton. Before we adjourn, do any regents have communications, petitions, or memorials to share? Seeing none, we stand adjourned.